did he do it?
The jurors saw the actual cut, the hole in his Porsche, and then they saw the damage done from that Molotov cocktail where the red interior is ruined and darkened by the fire that started in his car.
I mean, I'm 13 years old. I'm not here to party with you. I don't want to go to the clubs. Matter of fact, I'm too young to even be in here. Why you got me in clubs? There were a lot of things I seen and a lot of positions that I think I was put in where I had to make very, very tough decisions in my life about who I would be.
Combs' assistant calling Garcia after the incident, asking for a copy, according to testimony. When Garcia said no, the assistant showed up in person at the hotel. Garcia testified that he told her to contact his manager at the security company.
The day's big witness was a former security officer at the Intercontinental Hotel. He said Diddy paid him $100,000 to fork over what he thought was the one and only copy of a video of Cassie's assault.
That is being lumped onto that man every single day. And it doesn't matter how expensive and skilled his attorneys are. You get the case you're given. And they were given a real stinker. And all I can say to this is it is a really good thing that Sean Puffy Diddy Love, Puff Daddy Combs loves applesauce, because they serve that regularly in prison.
I am absolutely going to testify. I won't even say his name. He is an evil being, and is going to pay.
Candidates are being asked about their own connections to or impressions of an array of celebrities, and with no explanation why, at least not yet. The parlor games have begun, my friends. Everybody is trying to connect the dots between the shiny, famous names and the beleaguered rap star Diddy.
Like, what the fuck is going on? How many guys were on video saying, ain't no party like a Diddy party?
LeBron? Everybody know ain't no party like a Diddy party, so.
Yeah, how about Ashton Kutcher?
Diddy party stories. Man, that was like some weird memory lane.
All these people, like, you guys all went, you didn't see nothing?
Yeah. Donnell.
A grainy hotel hallway, camera rolls for 24 brittle seconds. In it, a man who once ruled hip-hop kicks and drags his pop star girlfriend like discarded luggage. That man is Sean Diddy Combs, and federal prosecutors say the video is merely Exhibit A in an empire-wide scheme of sex trafficking, blackmail, and hush money payoffs. If the tape feels brutal, stay with me, because Prince's own bodyguards, a torched Porsche, and a secret $100,000 cash drop make the story even darker. So how did we get from bad boy records to an 8-count federal indictment that could put Combs away for life? Jury selection began on May 5th, 2025 at Manhattan's Daniel Patrick Moynihan Courthouse, where U.S. District Judge Arun Subramanian cautioned prospective jurors that they would face graphic, disturbing allegations of coercion and violence during approximately 8 weeks of testimony.
So he comes in for a shift. He gets a call from Combs' assistant and says, hey, we really want to see that video. We know is this, that, and the other. And he said, no, you can't. I can't show it to you. You got to talk to management. Then that assistant shows up at the hotel, says that she wants to speak to him.
Federal prosecutors have charged Sean Diddy Combs with 8 counts: sex trafficking, racketeering, forced prostitution, narcotics distribution, kidnapping, bribery, witness intimidation, and obstruction. They accuse him of operating a coast-to-coast criminal enterprise that preyed on young women from 2006 to 2023. Filed under seal in late March, the 47-page indictment alleges that Combs laundered hush money through shell companies and used private security to silence victims. By May 12th, the court had seated 12 jurors, 7 men and 5 women, along with 6 alternates. Several acknowledged they had heard of the case but pledged impartiality.
Could ruin him. He wanted the video. He said if it got out, it would ruin his career. I said I didn't have access to the server. He told me he believed I could make it happen. He would take care of me.
What did you think he meant?
Money for the video.
What did you do?
Reached out to my supervisor about it.
Who was your supervisor?
Bill Madrano. He told me he would do it for $50,000.
What did you think that meant?
He'd give the video for $50,000.
Defense attorney Benjamin Braffman countered that his client is no saint but no trafficker, accusing the accusers of chasing book deals. Proceedings briefly stalled when the defense sought a weekend break, fearing that panelists might drop out. Judge Subramanian granted the delay, but later admonished the lawyers for racially charged remarks during voir dire. With the panel finally sworn in, Subramanian scheduled opening statements for the next morning, cautioning, "This trial will move quickly. Prepare accordingly." Assistant U.S. Attorney Mitzi Steiner wastes no time branding Sean Diddy Combs the predator-in-chief of a sprawling RICO-style operation. Striding to the lectern, she displays a giant flowchart. Drivers, videographers, celebrity hangers-on, and recruiters all orbit his photo like satellites. These weren't parties, she insists, pointer-tapping each node. They were production sets, scripted, filmed, archived, and weaponized.
Former assistant, known only as Mia, was on the stand for a second day. Mia admitted that she agreed to a $400,000 settlement with Combs when she left her job back in 2017. She says she told no one back then that her boss allegedly raped her.
PowerPoint slides flicker. Expense account jet manifests, Zelle receipts to Shell LLCs, and blurry hallway stills teased as Exhibit A. When Steiner concludes with "consent ends the moment fear begins," the jury is silent except for pens scratching notes. Defense lawyer Benjamin Brafman rises with studied calm, calling the chart a Netflix storyboard disguised as evidence. He reminds jurors of Combs's philanthropy, Grammy Awards, and decades of public scrutiny. Yes, there was sex, fame, and excess, he concedes, palms open. But every adult present could have walked out the door.
What's up, y'all? It's King Combs. And right now I'm taking over my pop's Instagram. We're gonna be posting videos by spreading, good energy and taking y'all down memory lane and all the positive things he did.
And many walked right back in for another invitation. Brafman portrays the accusers as opportunists pursuing book deals and podcast exclusives, leaning heavily on the presumption of innocence. Steiner offers a brief rebuttal. Our first witness, Cassandra Cassie Ventura, will show you exactly how hard that door was to find. The room breathes out in anticipation. Cassandra Cassie Ventura steps to the witness box in a cream blazer that swallows her frame, and the courthouse air seems to thin. For 4 relentless days, she speaks in a measured, almost clinical monotone, but the content is anything but sterile. She recalls meeting Combs at 19.
It's day 2 of Cassie Ventura on the stand. It's an emotional day. She is recounting a lot of the physical violence that she suffered while dating Combs for over a decade.
I thought I'd found a mentor, not a warden. First came luxury shopping sprees and private jet praise. Next, the curfews, the confiscated phone, the obligatory pills before so-called freak-off nights. Jurors jot furiously as she describes being ordered to perform for cameras that were everywhere, even the closets. Her narrative peaks with an attempted breakaway on April 14, 2016 at the Intercontinental Los Angeles. Surveillance video, projected larger than life, shows Combs sprinting down a carpeted hallway, delivering a kick to her ribs, then dragging her by the hair back toward a penthouse crowded with guests who look away. Cassie testifies that within hours, Combs offered security guard Eddie Garcia 6 figures in cash for the footage. She never saw the tape again until prosecutors subpoenaed the hotel's digital archive. During cross-examination, defense counsel labels her a jilted ex chasing royalties. Cassie simply gestures to the screen. The camera doesn't want a book deal. The prosecution's next witness is Regina Ventura, Cassie's mother, who clutches a stack of color-printed emails as if they're radioactive. She explains that on Christmas Eve 2011, while Cassie was spending the holiday with family, her phone pinged with a series of messages that froze the room. The sender, Sean Combs. The subject line, "Control your daughter." In one email, displayed for jurors in 48-point type, Combs warns that if Cassie keeps sneaking around with that Kid Cudi boy, he will release private footage that will end her career and make that kid disappear. Regina testifies she called her daughter, sobbing and terrified. The threat was real because Puff always had cameras, always had leverage. Prosecutors highlight this exchange as the earliest documented act of blackmail supporting the racketeering charge, arguing it demonstrates a deliberate pattern: create compromising content, then weaponize it. They strengthen their argument by presenting wire transfer records of $75,000 sent from a bad boy subsidiary to a Nevada company labeled consulting. Just 2 days later, money they claim was used to silence a studio engineer who had copies of the same footage. Defense attorney Benjamin Brafman attempts to reframe the emails as heated lovers' quarrel language, noting that no video ever surfaced. Regina's voice cracks in rebuttal. It didn't surface because we obeyed. The courtroom lights dim as a figure in a wide-brimmed hat and oversized blazer steps forward.
Also saying Combs sexually assaulted her more than once, leaving her feeling terrified and confused and ashamed and scared.
Records identify her only as Mia, a former personal assistant whose name and face remain sealed for safety. Serving Combs, she says, felt like being drafted into a cult. Nights began with trays of ecstasy and cocaine, party starter kits, followed by compulsory phone drops and a roaming cameraman filming everything like a twisted reality show. Any resistance earned the same warning. One leaked video could end a career. Mia's most chilling memory silences the gallery. At a 2010 post-Emmys party inside Prince's violet-lit Beverly Hills mansion, she watched Cassie chat by a koi pond. Combs, furious over the innocent conversation, charged like a linebacker, tackling Cassie onto the manicured grass. Prince's security team, not Cassie's, intervened, pinning Combs long enough for guests to spirit the singer indoors while police were summoned. During cross-examination, defense counsel presses her on timelines and drug doses, hinting at embellishment. Mia leans into the microphone. Trauma blurs dates, money blurs truth. Neither erases what happened. Jurors' pens fly, capturing every word. Then the gallery encounters its first celebrity witness, rapper Kid Cudi, calm in a charcoal suit yet visibly tight-jawed. He informs jurors that his month-long romance with Cassie in 2012 angered Combs more than any lyrical dispute ever had. A few weeks after Cassie severed ties with the mogul for good, Cudi's silver Porsche 911 burst into flames outside his Hollywood Hills home at 3:14 a.m. Fire investigation photos, hinges warped, paint bubbled like lava, fill the courtroom monitors. LAPD arson detective Marisol Pena testifies that the blaze was accelerant-driven and that lab swabs found traces of gasoline poured through the rear wheel well. Cudi recounts a midnight call from a blocked number, a familiar rasp, sneering, "Nice car. Shame if something else caught fire." He saved the voicemail. Prosecutors play the grainy clip, causing several jurors to flinch at the unmistakable cadence. Insurance paperwork shows the sports car totaled at $176,000, paid out under malicious vandalism. Former Combs assistant Capricorn Clark reinforces the narrative, recounting an earlier incident in which Combs allegedly broke into Cudi's guest house looking for Cassie's scent.
Well, Mia is on the stand. She's been on the stand since late morning, and she's likely to be on the stand through Friday. Prosecutors are utilizing her in part to prop up their argument that Sean Combs essentially abused his employees. And though she was only his personal assistant for about a year, she described it as chaotic and toxic. She said the highs were really high and the lows were incredibly low.
Clark's final line resonates in the silence. If he couldn't own her heart, he'd own her fear and torch anyone who tried otherwise. Hotel security supervisor Eddie Garcia recalls the night of April 15, 2016 as the shift that bought my silence. Around 2 a.m., he says, Sean Combs swept into the Intercontinental's back corridor, flanked by bodyguards and carrying a Louis Vuitton duffel. Inside were 2 fat bricks of bills, $50,000 each, the rubber bands still stamped with a Midtown bank seal. "This is for the hallway footage," Combs whispered, pressing the bag into Garcia's hands. "Make the original disappear. Keep a copy safe for me." "You're my angel." Garcia testifies he detached the DVR drive, logged it as maintenance, and stashed a duplicate on a password-locked thumb drive labeled Family Photos. The prosecution calls Lisa Nguyen, a forensic video analyst, to the stand. She demonstrates that the clip shown to jurors, Cassie being kicked and dragged, matches the hotel's internal timestamp checksum down to the millisecond, proving it to be an unaltered second-generation export. Nguyen also presents metadata for access logs that were wiped 6 hours after Garcia's maintenance entry, framing the payout as an obstruction tactic, not mere embarrassment control. Defense attorney Benjamin Braffman counters that celebrities routinely purchase unflattering footage to protect their brands. Prosecutor Mitzi Steiner fires back. "This wasn't PR, this was hush money for violence." By day 18, the federal courthouse resembles less a temple of law and more a pop culture coliseum. Lines snake around the block before sunrise. Scalpers whisper front row gallery, $250 a seat. Inside, every bench is packed with bloggers, podcast hosts, and off-duty paparazzi juggling battery packs like field medics. Judge Arun Subramanian starts each morning by reminding spectators that the First Amendment stops at the metal detector, yet the frenzy continues to test those limits.
He stomped on my stomach really hard, and I took the wind out of my breath. I couldn't breathe, and he kept hitting me, and I was pleading to him, can you stop?
The afternoon fireworks come courtesy of a social media influencer live streaming from row 3. While prosecutors question a protected witness, his phone, concealed in a coffee cup, broadcasts her real first name to 80,000 viewers in under 3 minutes. Court security springs into action. The stream freezes on a blur of ceiling tiles. Subramanian's gavel cracks like a starter pistol. He orders the influencer held overnight for contempt, bans him from future proceedings, and warns that the next violator will watch the trial from a cell. Minutes later, a spectator stands and shouts, "Free Diddy, this is a setup!" Marshals haul her out as jurors stare, stone-faced. Subramanian exhales, wipes his glasses, and turns back to the witness stand. The circus stops. The testimony continues. 19 court days in, the prosecution officially announces it is 80% complete. Their case file now encompasses 4 terabytes of video, 11 binders of text logs, and enough non-disclosure contracts to wallpaper the courtroom. Yet the heaviest punches may still be loading. Next week, an FBI cyber forensics chief will explain how Combs's iCloud backups, believed to be wiped, were quietly mirrored on a workstation in Quantico. Following that, 2 sealed depositions from A-list entertainers will be played for the jury under blackout conditions. Rumor links one voice to a Grammy-winning R&B icon who once referred to Combs as a mentor. Across the aisle, the defense outlines its counteroffensive. Lead counsel Benjamin Braffman suggests calling producer Quincy Jones III to argue that the so-called enterprise was no criminal syndicate but a loose artist collective where excess was mutual and voluntary. They have also subpoenaed a digital rights expert to scrutinize the chain of custody on every megabyte of video evidence, hoping even a sliver of doubt will ripple through the panel. Judge Aaron Subramanian warns both sides to be ready for closing arguments no later than week 6.
He goes down.
In person, again explains, I can't give you the video, I can't show you the video, but according to his testimony, he tells her it's not good. He then goes back up and gets another call from the assistant who puts Combs on the phone.
The internet said that Puffy tried to kill me. I left them parties early. I was out by 9. Something don't look right. It's slippery in here.
Well, I hang with P. Diddy, a lot, man. Sean, Puffy Combs. And we hang out, man. I mean, we party, and I call him Black Gatsby.
The Diddy racketeering trial was already a circus. Lawyers sparring, cameras flashing, when the courtroom door swung open at 11:07 a.m. A hush rolled through the gallery as Ice Cube strode in unannounced, gripping a thick black folder like a sealed confession. No entourage, no fanfare, just the steely focus of a man who'd carried a secret for decades. Official transcripts insist he never appeared. Cable news ran with that version. Yet by lunchtime, eyewitness tweets painted a different picture.
Are you surprised at what things are coming out with Diddy at all?
I mean, surprised? How could you be surprised with anything that happens in hip-hop? Hip-hop is the Wild West.
Did you ever have any kind of run-in with Diddy?
Yeah, he's produced a few records on my War and Peace album. And, I really lost contact with him and really stopped dealing with Puffy around 90.
Cube allegedly spoke of a hidden gatekeeper network where careers were traded for silence and footage became leverage. In those same whispers, Diddy's name was just a single thread in a web spanning moguls, movie stars, and red carpet royalty. So which story is real? The sanitized docket or the viral rumor? Tonight we rewind that pivotal moment, sift through the confirmed facts from the online frenzy, and probe the darker question everyone keeps sidestepping. If Ice Cube truly cracked Hollywood's code of silence, why are so many voices scrambling to erase him from the record?
They was doing their thing, I was doing mine. And, I'm not the partying type. You know what I mean? I ain't never been to a Diddy party. I ain't never really wanted to go. But I don't go to a lot of people parties. That just ain't what I'm in it for.
One way or another, something walked through that door, and the industry may never sleep as soundly again. Reporters barely had time to reload their notes when the bailiff's voice rang out. "All rise!" Everyone expected the judge. Instead, Ice Cube stepped through the doorway, shoulders squared, a matte black folder pressed against his chest like classified evidence. A pulse of murmurs rippled across the benches. Even Diddy's defense team froze mid-whisper, as if a fresh indictment had materialized out of thin air. Court clerks scanned the witness list. Cube's name wasn't there. That absence hit harder than any gavel strike. If the court hadn't summoned him, who had? Observers say he never searched for a seat.
Who killed Tupac and Biggie? I think both of these dudes were assassinated in some kind of way. More Biggie than Tupac. I think Tupac might got killed by a dude that they had an incident with earlier that day. But Biggie's seems a little
JFK.
governmental to me.
He marched straight to the rail where jurors could see the resolve etched on his face. 5 long seconds passed in total silence, the air thick with unspoken questions. Why now? What's inside that folder? Until the judge finally regained composure and asked the newcomer to identify himself for the record. Cube's reply was calm but seismic. I'm here because the record is incomplete. Gasps fluttered across the gallery. Outside, blogs lit up with frantic posts. Inside, every heartbeat seemed louder, and that silent folder suddenly looked heavier than any sworn testimony delivered so far. Everyone sensed the stakes had shifted. Nobody yet knew how far.
Nobody had to look at him for real. And the truth is nobody did. Everybody laughed and joked about him dancing like a idiot in all them goddamn videos, twirling around in circles.
Cube didn't waste a syllable. He flipped the folder open, withdrew a single sheet, and began naming what he called the Circle, a quiet alliance of executives, media icons, and legacy hitmakers who decide which faces rise and which vanish. He spoke without theatrics, listing closed-door retreats in Malibu, charity galas that doubled as vetting rooms, and after-hours networking nights where phones disappeared at the door. Every name he uttered, Oprah, Quincy, even a pair of studio chiefs whose initials alone could tank stock prices, echoed through the chamber like a warning shot. Jurors stiffened as Cube explained the Circle's real currency.
The tunnels from Diddy's house led to Hugh Hefner's house. That naked pool was down there long before Diddy was able to buy a home. It was Hugh Hefner's house where most of the offenses that the women accused Bill Cosby of.
Leverage. An offhand confession on a terrace, a blurred photo from an unfamiliar room, a careless joke caught by a hot mic, each item cataloged, stored, and weaponized. Play along, and the machine pushed your projects, protected your slip-ups, inflated your streams, push back, and schedule conflicts hollowed your calendar until the world forgot you existed. Yet he swore this wasn't vengeance, it was pattern recognition. I'm not exposing people, Cube said. I'm exposing a process. His voice stayed steady, but some jurors leaned away as though the idea itself could grab them. Then he paused, locked eyes with Diddy, and uttered the name that made the gallery gasp, Jamie Foxx.
Jamie Foxx laughing off his party days with Diddy, poking fun in his Netflix comedy special, Jamie Foxx What Had Happened Was, which is streaming now. The actor and comedian breaking his silence about his road to recovery after his near-fatal stroke last year.
Jamie Foxx's meteoric rise made him the Circle's favorite new recruit, until he started asking why the velvet rope parties demanded locked doors and absent phones. Cube told the court Jamie tried to play along at first, smile for the photo op, nod through whispered opportunities, then quietly slip out before the after-hours tests began. But curiosity has a price. Within months, jammed calendars turned to sudden postponements, and gossip sites, fed by anonymous insiders, called him erratic. Cube recounted one late-night call in 2022. Jamie's voice shook as he described a hilltop mansion, dim lights, and a camera he hadn't noticed until playback flashed across a private theater screen.
If Diddy hadn't done anything, if Diddy wasn't involved in anything, ain't nothing they could do to you. They could come at you, but if you got enough money like he had enough money, you understand? Whatever they say, the lies don't stand, bro.
He left in a hurry, but the silence that followed was louder than applause. Soon came the medical emergency that stunned Hollywood, officially a health complication. Yet Cube implied it was the industry's oldest message: comply or face the consequences. Fox refused. Offers evaporated. Projects where he'd already signed vanished in budget overhauls. Cube lifted another document, an email chain showing 3 back-to-back cancellations, each tracing to companies with deep bad boy ties. That, he warned, is how they erase you in plain sight.
Ladies and gentlemen, Ice Cube was holding a concert and publicly said he been in this business 40 years and he ain't never been to a Diddy party. Never, ever. Ain't too many celebrities can say that. Ain't too many of them can say that, but I tell you, you know the difference between Ice Cube and a lot of these other dudes? Ice Cube married, believe it or not. And they ain't just married, he married to a good woman. Ice Cube been married since he was 7 years old.
And the erasure, he hinted next, began with a single introduction, courtesy of Quincy Jones. The link traced back to 2005 when Oprah supposedly phoned Fox the night after his Ray Oscar win, offering guidance but steering him toward Quincy Jones's mansion. Publicly, Quincy is the maestro who shaped pop culture. Privately, Cube claimed, he's the concierge for Hollywood's quiet hierarchy. Jamie arrived expecting mentorship. Instead, Cube said, he faced a sit-down that felt less like coaching and more like onboarding. Champagne stayed corked, phones vanished into velvet pouches, and conversation turned from craft to responsibility, industry code for compliance. Quincy framed it as legacy building. Do a few favors, keep a few confidences, and the gates never close. Oprah, according to Cube, called it protecting black excellence. But Jamie sensed a leash tightening. When he hesitated, the tone shifted. Friendly suggestions became coded warnings. You don't want doors closing, do you? Cube showed a timeline. Within weeks, Fox's feature offers thinned. An unflattering rumor spread, and paparazzi photos of him leaving Quincy's driveway surfaced mysteriously online. That's the first squeeze, Cube explained. Proof the circle could flip a triumph into a threat overnight. He snapped the folder shut and stared at the jury. But paperwork and whispers are just the warm-up, he said. The real leverage lives on camera, and it never, ever gets deleted. Cube eased a slim USB stick from an inner pocket. A prop he wasn't allowed to plug in, but the symbolism hit harder than any slideshow. This isn't the one that matters, he told the room, but it's exactly what they use. He described the black car circuit, invitations labeled industry mixers, mansions scrubbed of phone signals, security teams who doubled as camera crews, hidden lenses framed candid moments, then vanished into encrypted drives. Weeks later, a shadow account sent a clip or still frame, just enough to remind the guest who really owned their future. He cited Cassie Ventura's recent testimony about freak-off parties and Kid Cudi's claim that his car mysteriously burned after a dispute.
What made you leave Diddy's side?
ASAP Ferg father went to Puff. He asked Puff to do a favor for him. He was in a certain situation. And I took him up there. I had $10,000 of Puff.
Patterns, Cube argued, not coincidences. Careers didn't implode randomly. They were nudged by anonymous calls, leaked audio, and contracts signed under sleepless panic. Leverage is the new currency, he said, and Diddy's circle printed it like money. Cube held the USB aloft once more. You think it's harmless? Try waking up to footage you don't remember filming. A chill slid through the courtroom. He lowered the stick, voice dropping to a near whisper. I know that terror, firsthand. One night in the hills showed me everything. And with that, he turned the spotlight on himself. Cube's voice lowered, yet the room felt somehow louder. In early 2003, he said, he accepted a last-minute networking invite. No flyer, no address, just a waiting SUV. The ride twisted up a canyon road toward a mansion glowing faintly against the hillside. At the gate, a guard collected phones for privacy. Cube hesitated but finally surrendered his. The latch clanged shut behind him like a vault. Inside, dim lights and softer music masked an odd stillness. Celebrities he'd only met at premieres drifted through hallways, eyes glossy, smiles mechanical. There was no DJ, no laughter, only murmured directions from staff in dark suits. In a side room, Cube spotted a chart-topping singer slumped on a couch, pupils wide, a camcorder's red light fixed on him from across the rug. No one else acknowledged the scene. Instinct screamed. Cube slipped out a back corridor, reclaimed his phone at the exit, and vanished into the night without goodbyes. He thought the escape was clean until dawn when a blocked caller whispered, "We saw you leave." No threat, no demand, just proof they were watching. That one sentence, Cube told the jury, was heavier than any weapon. It silenced him for years, until today, when silence finally felt more dangerous than the truth. What came after the mansion was a slow-motion disappearance, not just for Cube, but for anyone who quietly declined the circle's script.
Diddy has said this. He said, when I give a party, I have to have an ambulance outside of the house. Paramedics ready. That people have to take IVs.
First went the phone calls, agents suddenly out of office, producers retooling budgets, talk show bookings lost in scheduling snarls. Then the rumor mill lit up. Blind item blogs hinted Cube was difficult. A legacy actress was unstable. A Grammy winner had mysterious health problems. Same pattern, different names, each whisper sliding them one notch further from the spotlight. Cube laid out a flowchart: refusal, gossip, career stall, health scare. He pointed to Jamie Foxx's abrupt hospitalization, a singer's vanishing album rollout, a director whose film evaporated after he left a bad boy brunch. None of it proved a grand conspiracy, he admitted, yet every dotted line led back to the same collection of companies, PR firms, and executive assistants. They don't fire you, Cube said. They unwrite you. Worse were the clone rumors, digitally altered photos, shaky videos fueling fan theories that the real star was gone, replaced. Confusion is control, Cube warned. If the public can't tell what's real, nobody gets held accountable. He inhaled, eyes hard. But accountability, he promised, was about to get its turn. Cube approached the witness stand, pulled out a weathered photo from the folder, and held it up for the jury. Bright-eyed Ice Cube, 1991, all promise and no caution. The room gazed at the frozen grin while Cube narrated the price of that ambition. Every compromise disguised as an opportunity, every unreturned favor logged like debt. This kid thought talent was enough, he said, voice steady. Then in one slow motion, he ripped the photo in half. The paper crackled louder than any objection. Silence keeps the machine humming, Cube continued, eyes locked on Diddy. But torn paper makes noise. He listed the individuals the circle couldn't buy. Tupac railing against prison music. Prince's guards blocking Diddy from Cassie. Whistleblowers who vanished but left breadcrumbs.
You know, so I'm just saying, they didn't know. And he wasn't telling them. They just know he got the budget. He go to LA, he talk to Clive, he come back with the bread. Apparently, he has this man's confidence.
Each name landed like a gavel. A marshal eased closer, unsure if a prop was now evidence. Cube ignored him, turning to the jurors. This trial isn't about one man's guilt, he said. It's about whether power stays unrecorded. He placed the torn halves atop the USB stick, a makeshift exhibit of silence versus proof. Then he delivered the line that hushed even the stenographer's keys. If we won't rewrite the record will rewrite us. The trial was supposed to clarify Diddy's fate. Instead, it cracked open Hollywood's facade. Ice Cube's unscheduled appearance exposed a web of whispered favors, vanished phones, and flash drive blackmail stretching far beyond one mogul. Whether every detail survives cross-examination hardly matters. The seed is planted, and audiences will now question every glittering premiere that follows. Jurors leave the courthouse tonight knowing their verdict might impact more than a single defendant. It might become the first official record that this circle exists at all. Yet the folder's contents remain under seal, the USB still unread, and the names Cube hinted at, Oprah, Quincy, anonymous tycoons, hover like storm clouds that no judge can dismiss. If the prosecution introduces that evidence, careers, stock portfolios, and maybe entire studios could collapse in the public glare. If they bury it, the machine resets, and the next Jamie Foxx learns the same brutal lesson about locked doors and silent cameras. Either outcome reshapes the industry. Reporters keep refreshing dockets, insiders swap encrypted texts, and investors quietly dial crisis teams. For now, the torn photograph lies in an evidence bag, half a face missing, half still smiling, waiting to prove whether Hollywood rewrites itself or shreds the truth one page at a time.
A former stylist to the hip-hop mogul will return to the stand this morning. Yesterday, Deontay Nash recalled incidents in which he witnessed Combs' violence towards ex-girlfriend Cassie Ventura. Nash also testified that Combs was aggressive toward him personally. Combs has pleaded not guilty to all charges.
Lighter note, we learned from Nash that Cassie Ventura, the star witness in this case, had her baby a couple days ago. He's someone who has been very close with her over the years.
Beat a woman who was bleeding and then blamed everybody else in the room. That's the kind of guy I'm supposed to give the benefit of the doubt to. This is just one more in a pile of steaming you-know-what that is being lumped onto that man every single day. And it doesn't matter how expensive and skilled his attorneys are. You get the case you're given.
And Cassie Ventura's mother, Regina Ventura, talked about taking pictures with a Kodak digital camera of all the bruises all over her daughter's body because she said she wanted to memorialize them. There was no cross-examination.
It's so difficult to reflect on the darkest times in your life. Sometimes you gotta do that. I was disgusted then when I did it. I'm disgusted now.
As alleged in the indictment, to carry out this conduct, Sean Combs led and participated in a racketeering conspiracy that used the business empire he controlled.
The trial today really centered and was focused around the testimony of Deontay Nash, extremely sassy witness on the stand, who was the former stylist to Cassie Ventura. He testified to acts of violence, often seeing bruising on Cassie. He testified that at one point on a 2013 video shoot that Sean Combs also attacked him.
These corroborating witnesses is Dawn Richard. Last week on Friday, she started her testimony and she testified to the fact that she says that she witnessed Diddy violently beating Cassie.
A purple-lit mansion, a legendary host, and a once-in-a-lifetime jam session. Prince's 2010 post-Emmys party should have been a fairy tale night for rising singer Cassie Ventura. Instead, it exploded into chaos when Sean Diddy Combs barged in, tackled Cassie on Prince's manicured lawn, and had to be peeled off by the Purple One's own security. 15 years later, that glittering nightmare sits at the heart of Diddy's federal sex trafficking trial. Cassie and former assistant Mia have finally laid the scene bare for jurors, revealing how one fearless intervention exposed years of power, fear, and abuse hidden behind platinum hits. When Cassie met Diddy at 19, the music mogul promised mentorship and superstardom.
And Cassie Ventura, who is 38 years old and currently 8 months pregnant with her third child, came face to face with Sean Combs in the courtroom yesterday, the man who she says controlled every aspect of her life since she was 22 years old.
What she got instead, prosecutors say, was a gilded cage. Mia and other ex-staffers testified that Cassie's life ran on Diddy's timetable. Surprise phone sweeps, blackout periods with no friends allowed, and silent punishments if she even visited a coffee shop unapproved. One assistant recalled Diddy boasting he had Cassie right where I wanted her, young and moldable. Over 11 years, Cassie's world shrank to penthouses, private jets, and whispered apologies for unexplained bruises. Friends knew something was off, but contracts, NDAs, and Diddy's vast industry clout kept questions soft. Cassie learned the cardinal rule: never appear where Diddy hadn't cleared, because defiance was met with unpredictable and terrifying consequences.
It's an emotional day. She is recounting a lot of the physical violence that she suffered while dating Combs for over a decade.
That tension set the stage for Prince's party, where one forbidden night of freedom would ignite Diddy's fury before dozens of stunned witnesses and eventually an entire courtroom. Emmy night 2010. Diddy told Cassie he'd be with family, leaving her sequestered at the Beverly Hills Hotel with Mia, just in case. Then Cassie's phone pinged, a friend whispering that Prince himself was throwing an after-hours jam at his nearby estate. To Cassie, a lifelong Prince devotee, the invite felt like winning a golden ticket. The risk was obvious.
Drika, how would you describe Cassie's demeanor when she took the stand today?
When she walked in there, Rachel, she had on a brown dress, form-fitting, visibly pregnant, head held high, and did not make any eye contact with the defendant, with Sean Combs.
Diddy monitored her whereabouts through staff check-ins and surprise calls. Still, the thrill eclipsed fear. Cassie and Mia spent an hour pacing the suite like teenagers plotting an escape, weighing stardom against safety. Finally, adrenaline won. They slid into a hired SUV, hearts racing, knowing a single paparazzi flash could sink them. Passing Prince's gates, Cassie exhaled a shaky laugh. For the first time in months, she wasn't Diddy's accessory. She was just a fan about to witness her idol under violet stage lights. Both women silenced their phones and vowed to be ghosts on social media. It felt daring, delicious, and incredibly dangerous. Prince's mansion buzzed with electric funk.
First Diddy party I went to was at Prince's house. So you want to go to Prince's house to the Diddy party where Tyrese is performing and Demi Moore and Ashton Kutcher are swinging on swings. That is what's happening on the other side of the wall. And so the one thing that makes this party different than a Jamie Foxx party or any other celebrity party that wrangles a bunch of young women or guys or whatever too, is that Diddy didn't let you bring your security in the party.
Candlelit walkways glowed lavender. A small stage overflowed with guitars and horn players. Guests, actors fresh from the Emmys, chart-topping musicians, NBA stars crowded the courtyard. Prince glided in, strapped on his guitar, and launched into a blistering rendition of Let's Go Crazy. Cassie, jaw dropped, pressed near the stage while Mia grabbed drinks shaped like purple raindrops. For almost an hour, Cassie forgot the leash around her life, swaying under velvet lights as Prince winked her way mid-solo. Staff circulated hors d'oeuvres, politely reminding everyone that photos were taboo. Prince valued the moment over Instagram clout. Cassie felt something she hadn't felt in years. Safe, anonymous, free. Yet beneath the euphoria lurked an unshakable worry.
Day 3 of the Diddy trial, and I'm here outside of the Manhattan Federal Courthouse on this very rainy day, where Cassie has continued giving her gut-wrenching testimony. Today, she took the stand and name-dropped rappers Drake and French Montana, saying she and Diddy were packing to go to Drake's music festival in Canada when Diddy threw her into a bed frame.
What if Diddy's team tracked her phone? What if a guest texted him a tip? Cassie pushed the thought aside and lost herself in Kiss, unaware that outside the gates a black SUV had just rolled up, and a furious figure in a bucket hat was striding toward the entrance. Diddy's arrival felt like a sonic boom. Mia spotted him first, shoulders tight, eyes scanning the crowd like a predator who had smelled prey. Cassie's breath caught. She bolted before the first note of Prince's next song finished echoing. Witnesses later told jurors they saw Diddy shove past partygoers, hissing Cassie's name while security tried politely to ask for credentials. The music never stopped, but conversation froze as the mogul stormed toward the foyer.
Of Sean Diddy Combs. R&B singer and his ex-girlfriend Cassie Ventura took the stand today. Now, we have to warn you, the details in this case are very difficult to hear.
Cassie kicked off her stilettos, sprinting through the marble hallway toward moonlit gardens. Mia chased after her, whisper shouting directions. Outside, floodlights lit a path down to the circular driveway. Cassie could feel Diddy closing in. His footfalls reverberated like a drumline. She darted onto the grass, dew soaking her bare feet, praying for a miracle. Behind her, Diddy cleared the doorway in full stride, face twisted in rage at the sight of his defiant partner. Party guests exchanged startled glances, unsure whether to help or stay out of a powerful man's path. The chase was on. Wet turf betrayed Cassie. She slipped, tumbled into a manicured hedge, and felt a hand clamp her shoulder. Puff caught Cass, Mia later testified. The next seconds blurred into terror. Cassie landed hard on her back, Diddy straddling her, fists balled, voice spewing accusations of betrayal. One onlooker gasped. Another stepped forward, hesitated, and retreated. Cassie curled into a fetal shield, the scent of fresh-cut lawn filling her lungs. She would later recall only flashes, Prince's guitar echoing in the distance, strobe lights flickering across Diddy's furious silhouette, the metallic tang of adrenaline in her mouth. Mia froze a few yards away, paralyzed by the realization that the violence she usually witnessed behind penthouse doors was now unfolding in front of Hollywood power brokers. Then came a deep, authoritative bark. "Get off her, now!" It sliced through the chaos and turned every head toward two imposing men surging across the lawn. The men belonged to Prince. Dressed in discreet dark suits, they moved with military precision. One grabbed Diddy's arms from behind, wrenching him upright. The other stepped between attacker and victim, planting himself like a steel door. "Not in my house," he growled, according to Mia's sworn testimony.
One of the instances that she brought up was that at Diddy's home in Los Angeles, she alleged that Cassie was cooking eggs or handling eggs in the kitchen for Diddy. And he came downstairs, he was incredibly angry and upset, and he took that frying pan, the hot pan of eggs, and attempted to throw it at Cassie.
Shock rippled through the crowd. Sean Combs was accustomed to bodyguards who followed orders, not issued them. He writhed, cursing, but Prince's guard held fast. Cassie, trembling, scrambled backward into the shrubs, eyes wide and glassy. Prince's band never missed a beat inside, yet on the lawn, the music felt miles away. Guests whispered, phones half-drawn, unsure whether filming a billionaire's meltdown would invite lawsuits. With Diddy restrained, another guard waved a driver forward. A black sedan screeched up, and Mia pulled Cassie inside, slamming the door as Diddy roared from across the lawn. That 20-second intervention would later become a linchpin of the prosecution's narrative, proof that when outside Diddy's controlled bubble, bystanders did step in, and that Cassie's fear of him was no exaggeration. Freedom lasted mere hours. Near dawn, Cassie unlocked her Beverly Hills suite, thinking she'd outrun the storm. Instead, the storm kicked in the door. Diddy burst inside, eyes bloodshot, suitcase in hand, projectile and weapon in one. Cassie testified he pelted her with luggage, shouting slurs and accusations. A makeup artist called to prep Cassie for a video shoot the next morning arrived to find swollen lips and knotted welts. Mia, hiding 2 floors up, heard the commotion but didn't dare call police. She later told jurors she believed Diddy's reach was above the law. Cassie spent that day behind sunglasses, rehearsing excuses for every bruise. She'd fallen, she'd bumped a door, she'd tried a new workout, anything to avoid triggering Diddy's fury again. The message was clear: escape is impossible and punishment will follow you home. Diddy's corporate response? HR paperwork. The next afternoon, an internal manager informed Mia she was suspended without pay for insubordination, effective immediately. No mention of the lawn assault appeared in the memo, only that Mia had disobeyed a direct order by leaving the hotel. Staffers understood the real rule: protect the boss, ignore the bruises. Years later, another assistant, Capricorn Clark, told jurors she once watched Diddy kick Cassie on a Gulfstream jet while a bodyguard stood there like marble. Stylist Deontay Gray testified he'd seen Cassie emerge from hotel rooms with black eyes hidden under full coverage foundation.
And all I can say to this is it is a really good thing that Sean Puffy Diddy Love Puff Daddy Combs loves applesauce, because they serve that regularly in prison.
NDAs, lavish salaries, and fear of blacklisting sealed lips, fostering a culture where violence equaled authority. But federal investigators chipped away, questioning ex-employees in 2024. One by one, the silence cracked. Mia finally handed prosecutors copies of that suspension letter, proof, she said, that loyalty mattered more than safety in Diddy's world. May 2025, Manhattan. Cassie, now married, mother of 3, walked into federal court and swore to tell the truth. Reporters described a hushed gallery as she relived Prince's party. The chase, the tackle, the blessed moment security saved her. Jurors leaned in. Some winced when she recalled hiding in a bush, shaking so hard she could barely stand. Mia followed, corroborating every detail and adding her own traumas. Unwanted groping after Diddy's 40th birthday bash, ice buckets to the head, threats whispered in corridors. Prosecutors argued that the Prince incident crystallizes Diddy's coercive control central to trafficking counts. Defense lawyers dismissed it as a lover's spat. Outside, headlines screamed potential life sentences. Yet beyond legal stakes, the testimony has already reframed Diddy's legacy, from party impresario to alleged predator. For Cassie and Mia, the courtroom is more than a venue. It's the first place their voices outweigh Diddy's empire of spin. One purple-soaked night ripped the mask off a music dynasty. Prince's guards drew a hard line, not here, and their split-second courage echoes now in federal court as Cassie Ventura's nightmare becomes public record. Whether the jury convicts or acquits, the narrative has already shifted. Glamour no longer shields violence, and silence no longer equals safety. Cassie's barefoot flight across Prince's lawn, once a whispered Hollywood rumor, stands as a landmark in pop culture accountability. It reminds us that even the smallest intervention can alter a destiny, and that truth, once spoken aloud, changes every story that followed.
On September 16, 2024, music mogul Sean Diddy Combs was arrested in New York City and charged with racketeering, trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, and transportation to engage in relations for money. Prosecutors allege Diddy ran a criminal enterprise involving forced labor, kidnapping, and bribery.
Sean Diddy Combs is facing another long list of sexual misconduct allegations. He's in jail awaiting trials on charges of trafficking women for sex parties. He's pleaded not guilty. An attorney in Houston says he represents 120 people who say Combs abused them as well. The allegations are disturbing.
Our youngest victim at the time of the occurrence was 9 years old. We have an individual who was 14 years old. We have one who was 15. 25 of the 120 individuals who are plaintiffs in these cases were minors at the time of the acts complained of.
Combs' lawyer said he denies any claim that he sexually abused anyone, including minors.
The last hearing before Sean Combs' trial starts, when he walked into federal court today, he appeared to be looking for his family. They've pretty much been at all of the hearings that I've been to, but there was no presence of his sons or his mother or his sister who had previously been at those hearings. What came out of today's hearing? Number one, the government acknowledged that they offered Combs a plea deal. Combs acknowledged he has no interest in taking that. They're going to move forward with the trial. They also talked about the jury selection process, which one legal expert I spoke to said is probably the most important thing that you want to pay close attention to before the actual trial starts.
At trial, Combs will ditch the jail garb and wear ordinary clothes. As his lawyers argue, the evidence shows consenting adults being intimate in their own way.
Now, as far as jury selection goes, I think the biggest takeaway for me is that both sides expect to have all of this done in the matter of 3 days. Now, given just how high profile this trial is, I was kind of stunned that they seem very confident that they will be able to seat a jury in that amount of time.
At the center of it all are so-called freak-offs, orchestrated erotic activities where Diddy allegedly directed men and women in X-rated performances. Many were said to be unknowingly filmed and blackmailed. Purportedly, victims, some underage, were controlled using threats, violence, narcotics, and money. Raids on Diddy's homes uncovered videos, firearms, and curiously, over 1,000 bottles of baby oil and lubricant.
What started as a private lawsuit exploded into one of the most disturbing celebrity trials in modern history. Sean Diddy Combs, once considered hip-hop royalty and a business mogul worth hundreds of millions, is now at the center of a chilling federal case involving sex trafficking, racketeering, and disturbing abuse allegations. But this isn't just a story about criminal charges, it's about what really happened behind closed doors, far away from the red carpets and platinum records. The government says these weren't just parties, they were carefully orchestrated events, allegedly designed to degrade, control, and exploit women, especially his longtime girlfriend, Cassie Ventura. They called them freak-offs, and what we've learned from courtroom testimony has left the public stunned. We're talking about baby oil pools, masked voyeurs, coordinated drug use, and what one witness described as live sex performances directed by Diddy himself. From Cassie's graphic testimony to shocking evidence uncovered during the FBI raid on his Miami mansion, every detail has peeled back the curtain on a lifestyle darker than anyone imagined. This isn't tabloid gossip anymore. This is federal court under oath, and the facts are hard to ignore. Let's break down the top 21 most sickening revelations.
And so we're going to have a lot of information coming at these jurors fast and furiously. We will see Sean Diddy Combs in court today to decide what the fate will be. But opening statements, Sarah, this is the moment you're going to hear from the prosecution to lay out their case. What will they allege? What do they want the jurors to know, to hang on to, and what will be an 8 to 10 week trial?
If there's one image that stuck with everyone during Cassie Ventura's testimony, it was the so-called baby oil pool. Yes, an actual inflatable kiddie pool filled entirely with Johnson & Johnson baby oil, heated and used during the alleged freak-off parties. According to Cassie, this wasn't a one-time thing. It became part of a bizarre, exhausting ritual, one she says left her physically ill and emotionally numb. Cassie testified that before these events, she'd often be tasked with shopping for candles, outfits, and lubricants, sometimes from upscale adult stores like Pleasure Chest or Hustler. In some texts presented by the defense, she even joked about buying sweats and vitamins while prepping for the night. But in court, she made it clear, this wasn't fun, it was expected. Even more disturbing, the federal government says they found over 1,000 bottles of baby oil linked to Diddy. It wasn't just used lightly. Cassie described suffering from friction burns in her mouth due to the oil and other substances used during the events. One defense attorney tried to downplay it by asking if the baby oil was laced with drugs. Cassie's answer? Not the ones I took. The implication? She never had a choice.
Today, in a New York federal courtroom, Sean Diddy Combs told the judge he was, quote, a little nervous. The rap mogul's criminal trial began this morning. He is sex trafficking, racketeering, and more. The two sides are now in the process of selecting a jury of 12, plus all.
The parties didn't just rely on mood lighting and baby oil, they ran on a constant cocktail of drugs. Cassie testified that the freak-offs often lasted 36 to 72 hours, with the longest stretching over 4 days. To keep going, she said she was regularly given ecstasy, cocaine, Molly, ketamine, and even GHB, a powerful depressant often referred to as a date drug. In one exchange, The defense asked Cassie if she experimented with GHB during her relationship with Diddy. Her response? Yes. She also admitted to taking ketamine and psychedelics. Prosecutors allege the drug use wasn't always voluntary. Cassie says she needed substances just to disassociate from the trauma unfolding around her. During the FBI raid on Diddy's Miami mansion, agents uncovered a disturbing stash. Pills of all shapes and colors, baggies with white powder, and even a rolled-up $100 bill. A former assistant claimed Diddy popped Percocet by day and ecstasy by night. One civil lawsuit alleged that some of the baby oil might have even been laced with GHB, a claim Cassie denied experiencing firsthand but didn't dismiss outright. These weren't just drug-fueled parties. According to testimony, they were marathons of control, fear, and numbed consent.
We're also expecting to hear from an escort who is seen as a witness in this case as well. We heard last week from the defense they're planning on attacking Ventura as well, saying that she was mutual in the domestic violence in this case, saying that she was violent toward Combs.
Enter Sheree Hayes, better known by his stage name, The Punisher. A professional exotic dancer, Hayes was hired by a mysterious woman named Janet in 2012 for what he thought would be a standard birthday gig. He arrived at Trump Tower expecting a crowd. Instead, it was just one woman, Cassie Ventura, in a bathrobe, asking him to create a sexy scene using bowls of baby oil. What Hayes didn't realize was that the real audience was hiding in plain sight. Cassie's husband, as she called him, eventually entered the room completely nude, wearing a face veil that only revealed his eyes. Hayes later identified him as Sean Diddy Combs. According to testimony, Diddy silently watched, sometimes pacing, sometimes masturbating, while giving subtle stage directions. Move the light, angle your body, apply more oil. The entire setup was methodical. The lights were dimmed, candles, possibly electric, flickered. Furniture was draped in sheets. Bowls of baby oil floated in water. Hayes said he was paid $2,000 for the night and instructed not to speak to or acknowledge Diddy at all. He would later join Cassie and Diddy for up to a dozen more of these freak-off encounters, always at odd hours, always on Diddy's terms.
And we have more breaking news. Opening statements are underway in the Sean Diddy Combs sex trafficking trial. Prosecutors claim Combs ran a criminal enterprise with his trusted inner circle and committed crime after crime for 20 years. Now the defense is responding, accusing the government of trying to turn choices among consenting adults into a racketeering case.
Cassie Ventura's testimony didn't stop at control or drugs. It ventured into something far more disturbing: humiliation as a weapon. According to her, Diddy orchestrated degrading acts during freak-offs that went well beyond physical intimacy. In one instance, she claimed Diddy directed male escorts to urinate on her. When prosecutors asked if she consented, her answer was simple and chilling: no. There was no conversation, no warning, just an act done for his pleasure, not hers. Cassie also described situations where she was forced to continue participating even during her menstrual cycle. She recalled being expected to perform through pain, discomfort, and emotional distress. She even alleged that Diddy sometimes demanded that an escort's bodily fluids be placed on his body in a separate room. These weren't moments of passion. They were performances, according to Cassie, where she was expected to act happy while feeling disgusting and worthless. She said she took drugs just to mentally detach from what was happening. To the jury, prosecutors painted Diddy not as a party host, but as a director of real-life, non-consensual performances, using sex, power, and humiliation as tools of dominance. This wasn't adult entertainment. This was, as Cassie described it, emotional warfare.
We expect to see firearms and ammunition that were seized during search warrants at Sean Combs' homes. There should be drugs also alluded to in the indictment and medical records of the victims showing that there was force used.
When you see these RICO cases and you see here like 8 weeks of testimony in this, you tend to say, oh, this must be a complicated case.
The physical abuse Cassie described on the stand was just as harrowing as the emotional torment. She testified that Diddy didn't just control her, he beat her. Hard, repeatedly. In court, the jury was shown photos of black eyes, bruised shoulders, and bloodied lips. Injuries, Cassie said, came directly from Diddy's hands. She claimed the violence wasn't random. It often followed disagreements about freak-offs or moments where she tried to assert herself. Perhaps the most damning piece of evidence, a surveillance video from 2016 shown to the jury but leaked to CNN and viewed by millions. In the footage, Diddy is seen chasing Cassie through a hotel hallway, grabbing, shoving, and kicking her as she tries to escape. Cassie testified that she was fleeing a freak-off and that the assault captured on video was not an isolated incident. According to her, these beatings would happen frequently, especially when she didn't comply with Diddy's demands. She said he once stomped on her head while she was already on the ground. The courtroom was silent as she recounted these moments, not just because of the brutality, but because it painted a portrait of someone who used fear to enforce obedience, not love.
The final phase of jury selection in Sean Diddy Combs' federal criminal trial is getting underway. 12 jurors and 6 alternates. They are expected to be seated this morning, and then opening statements begin. We could see also the prosecution's key witness.
Cassie didn't just testify about freak-offs. She described living in a psychological prison where Diddy controlled nearly every aspect of her life. From what she wore to what color her nails were painted, nothing was left to chance. Even the lighting in the room during freak-offs had to be approved. She said everything had to be perfect, but the perfection wasn't hers. It was his. The control extended far beyond the bedroom. Cassie told the jury that her music career suffered dramatically because Diddy's demands took priority. She described missing studio sessions, delaying releases, and putting her creative work on the back burner, all because she had to prepare for, participate in, or recover from freak-offs. According to her, what started as a romantic relationship slowly morphed into a job, one she never signed up for. At one point, Cassie said she felt more like a sex worker than an artist. She claimed Diddy expected her to send him explicit messages constantly, just to keep him sexually excited. Prosecutors alleged that her days were split between planning freak-offs, coordinating with escorts, and earning her place in Diddy's life. In her words, she didn't feel like a partner. She felt owned.
Combs' former girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, testified today. You remember that CNN last year published a hotel surveillance video from 2016 showing Combs attacking Ventura. He has pleaded not guilty to the charges of racketeering and sex trafficking. If convicted, Sean Combs could spend the rest of his life in prison.
While the prosecution painted a picture of abuse, the defense came armed with a strategy. Cassie wasn't a victim, they argued. She was a willing participant. To prove it, they brought out dozens of text messages between Cassie and Diddy that seemed flirtatious, even playful. In one message, Diddy asked, "When do you want to freak off, LOL?" And Cassie replied, "I'm always ready to freak off, LOL, LOL." The defense used moments like this to argue that the relationship was not just consensual, it was mutually enthusiastic. They pointed to evidence that Cassie often helped plan the freak-offs, booking hotel rooms, purchasing candles, baby oil, and lingerie. In some texts, she described shopping trips to adult stores like Pleasure Chest or asked if she should pack sweats or reg clothes before setting up the scene. They also noted that Cassie and Diddy exchanged loving messages, calling each other ride or die and expressing deep emotional attachment over more than a decade. But the prosecution countered, just because someone participates doesn't mean they want to. Just because someone plans doesn't mean they aren't under pressure. To them, the question wasn't about love. It was about control, masked as consent.
This morning, that's what we're hoping to see happen any time now. And less than 30 minutes ago, Kate, it was a flurry of activity behind us at this courthouse as we saw people make their way inside of the courtroom. One of Diddy's accusers actually in the front of that line waiting to get inside.
When federal agents raided Diddy's $48 million Miami mansion in March 2024, they weren't just looking for drugs. They were looking for proof of a lifestyle that prosecutors claimed was built on coercion, exploitation, and fear. What they found stunned even veteran investigators. Inside the sleek waterfront property, agents uncovered a staggering collection of items that matched Cassie's testimony down to the last disturbing detail. There were dozens of boxes of high heels, ropes, lingerie, and adult toys, some too graphic to name. Shelves lined with Astroglide, stacks of baby oil bottles, and even sexual enhancement products banned by the FDA were documented and photographed. One room contained writing on a bathroom mirror in lipstick. "What do you want?" and "You are legend. Breathe." Alongside the sexual paraphernalia were more serious discoveries. Multiple firearms, including AR-15-style rifles with defaced serial numbers, ammunition, and containers allegedly filled with cocaine and MDMA. Bags of pills were photographed next to rolled-up dollar bills inside designer bags. To prosecutors, it was physical validation of Cassie's story. To the defense, it was circumstantial. But to the public, the images were jaw-dropping. Undeniable glimpses into a secret life now on trial.
There is the video, the surveillance video from 2016 in a hotel showing the vicious attack by Sean Combs on Cassandra Ventura. And of course, there's other evidence alluded to in the indictment. We expect to see some of these bottles of baby oil and lubricant from the so-called freak-off.
The shockwaves from this trial are already being felt far beyond the courtroom. What began as a civil lawsuit settled in just one day has unraveled into a full-scale federal investigation that could reshape how the entertainment industry views its most powerful players. Cassie's $20 million settlement may have closed one chapter, but the government's criminal case against Sean Diddy Combs is still unfolding, and it's getting darker by the day. More witnesses are scheduled to testify, including other alleged victims, former employees, and insiders who claim they saw everything. Prosecutors have hinted that even more evidence, including unreleased videos, photos, and financial records, could still be brought forward. The trial is expected to last at least 7 weeks, and each passing day introduces new details that reinforce one chilling narrative. This wasn't just a party lifestyle gone too far. This was a pattern of control, humiliation, and abuse. If convicted, Diddy could face decades behind bars. But even before a verdict is reached, his public image has already been torched. The allegations, the video footage, and the testimony have revealed a side of him the public never knew, or maybe refused to see. Now, there's no looking away.
Another expectation that we have today, we're hoping to hear from some of the government's witnesses. They said they're hoping to present 3 witnesses this week, and that includes Cassie Ventura, like you mentioned, longtime former girlfriend of Sean Diddy Combs. She's seen as one of the central witnesses to the prosecution's case.
This trial has done more than expose one man's alleged dark secrets. It's pulled back the curtain on a world of power, silence, and manipulation hiding in plain sight. From baby oil pools to bruises behind closed doors, every testimony has chipped away at the myth of untouchable celebrity. Whether Diddy is found guilty or not, the damage is done. The industry is watching, the public is listening, and for once, the silence surrounding abuse and control at the highest levels is being shattered. The truth, no matter how sickening, is finally center stage.
And then Capricorn Clark proceeded to see Diddy kick Cassie brutally and stomp her down for about 50 minutes? No, 50 yards. It was a lot. Now, a couple of questions. We're going to talk about who Mia is and who Jane Doe is. I don't think it's KK because whatever, but there's more. Hold on, y'all. All right. Cares about that. Let's get into the real mess. Capricorn Clark stepped in. She sashayed into that courtroom. She had a high-waisted, long, to her feet, pinstripe pencil skirt. I said, oh, look at you. She had these burgundy pumps with, burgundy slip-ons with like these rhinestone detail. She had on a white shirt. She looked amazing. Her hair was in the central part, pulled back, and she had on some glasses. Given sexy secretary, but court appropriate, right? Zandra Roberts, thank you so much for the super chat. What's up, you guys? We are back. We're outside the courthouse. We are back. Capricorn Clark just destroyed Diddy, and I have all the notes, and you know I'm going to give y'all the dramatic reinterpretation. People are drop kicking someone. He's pulling chairs out like a southern gentleman. Well, okay, right? They do a little offside about DNA testing because there's a witness saying that there was partial female DNA found on Kid Cudi's car and the Molotov cocktail. We got to talk about that all later because Diddy is not coming back from this. Okay, so get this. Capricorn comes in, and she said she was born in San Fran, but she lived in LA, right? She said she came out in 1996. She started music. She was an intern at Jeff Jam Records. Y'all want a preview? She literally said that Diddy said that she was going to murk her, Kid Cudi, and Cassie. Diddy made Cassie switch places with Capricorn Clark. He kidnapped Capricorn Clark, would not release her until Cassie traded herself in, okay? So anyway, right? She started out, and that's just, listen, that's not even the whole thing. She started off in an intern for Def Jam Records. Her mom passed away. Her dad passed away. I do want to say this. I feel like Diddy is always picking someone and finding their inner hurts, right?
Kidnapped by Diddy? Believe it, Capricorn Clark just told a stunned jury that the hip-hop mogul locked her in a gutted office for 5 straight days, forced her through endless lie detector tests, and warned that if she failed, she'd be dumped in the East River. That revelation froze the courtroom, but it's only the first shockwave. In the next few minutes, you'll hear Clark's full timeline. A 5 a.m. raid on Kid Cudi's house, death threats that echoed for years, and the morning she says Diddy kicked Cassie into the street. By the end, you'll decide, terrifying truth or crafted tale. Roll the tape. The live testimony starts now.
Yeah, as far as the cross-examination goes, for the most part, it seems very casual. We were thinking that it might be aggressive, it might be combative, but for the most part, Cassie has been very forthcoming in answering these questions.
Capricorn Clark steps onto the stand, voice trembling, and suddenly the trial's sterile legal language turns raw. For jurors, she isn't just another witness. She's a former insider who lived 8 years under Sean Diddy Combs' roof. Prosecutors remind everyone that this is no tabloid feud. Combs now faces federal sex trafficking and racketeering counts after his September 2024 arrest, accused of running freak-off parties that span 2 decades. Clark frames those headlines with a chilling personal prologue. On her first day, he warned that if her link to Suge Knight brought trouble, "I'd have to kill you." Instantly, the courtroom tension spikes. Viewers realize this isn't just a celebrity clash, it's a story about power, paranoia, and a boss who allegedly weaponized fear. Hold that thought, because what Clark recounts next will make that opening threat feel like a mild introduction.
Los Angeles. I expect them to be testifying about their response to Kid Cudi's home when his black Porsche 911 was firebombed outside of his home in the Hollywood Hills.
Jewelry goes missing from Diddy's home, and Clark says she becomes the scapegoat. Bodyguard Uncle Paulie searches her apartment, finds nothing. Yet the next morning drives her to a dilapidated, gutted Manhattan building. Locked doors, cigarette smoke, and a hulking polygraph examiner who sneers, "Fail, and you're headed for the East River." For 5 straight days, security escorts shuttle her between that room and her house, forbidding escape until the tests clear her. Each evening, she returns home physically free but psychologically caged, only to start over at dawn. Clark tells jurors she was petrified, just trying to survive, insisting she endured the ordeal to prove innocence, while managers inside Bad Boy Records allegedly turned a blind eye. The testimony lands like a cinematic hostage thriller, except she claims the villain was her employer. By day 5, the polygraph remains inconclusive, but the power dynamic is crystal clear, and the jury's eyes are fixed on Clark's tears.
Cassie, about messages surrounding her involvement in so-called freak-offs. In one 2009 message, Cassie wrote to Diddy, "When we used to freak off, when we were so in love, there were no questions asked."
December 2011, Los Angeles. A violent pounding rattles Clark's apartment door at 5:30 a.m. Through the peephole, she sees Diddy pacing, furious, a handgun visible. "Get dressed, we're going to kill Scott," she testifies, he barked, enraged that Cassie Ventura was dating Kid Cudi, born Scott Mescudi. Clark, terrified, climbs into an Escalade with Diddy and bodyguard Ruben. The firearm rests on his lap. At Cudi's house, Combs storms inside while Clark stays in the car, secretly phoning Cassie's burner to warn her. Moments later, Diddy returns, even angrier after spotting Clark on the phone. A brief car chase with Cudi ends when police sirens appear, yet Clark can't leave. According to her, Diddy vows she can go home only after Cassie promises Cudi won't involve law enforcement. "If you don't convince him, I'll kill all of you," she recalls him saying. It's a sequence straight out of an action film, except we're listening to it under oath.
Cassie Ventura not only wanted to participate in these freak-offs, but that she enjoyed them in the beginning. In one text, as you mentioned, she said, "I'm always ready to freak off."
Hours later, Clark follows Diddy back to his LA rental with Cassie and bodyguard Ruben. She testifies that Combs appears in a robe and underwear, then, without warning, begins kicking Cassie in the back, driving her fetal-positioned body out the door and into the street. Clark freezes. Ruben, the guard, does nothing. Desperate, she dials other security chiefs. No answer. Finally, she calls Cassie's mother. "I'm in over my head. I can't call the police, but you can." Diddy allegedly threatens, "I should kill you. I should cut her face," before storming inside. The moment crystallizes Clark's dilemma, a witness to violence but trapped by loyalty, fear, and NDAs. For jurors and viewers at home, the scene reveals why so many insiders stayed silent for years, and it escalates the moral stakes of this trial.
Day 10 of the criminal trial against Sean Diddy Combs. Today we are expecting testimony from Capricorn Clark, Combs' former assistant. Last week we heard from...
Beyond headline violence, Clark paints a picture of day-to-day psychological siege. Typical shift, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., no meal breaks, constant phone calls. Stress triggers alopecia. Hair falls out in clumps. HR later calculates $80K in unpaid overtime. Diddy allegedly rips up the paper on the spot. When she mutters, "I hate it here," he allegedly shoves her across the lawn, screaming that she can't have a life outside his orbit. Fired soon after for a minor vacation paperwork error, she says Diddy sneers, "You'll never work again. I'll make you kill yourself." The testimony reframes the case. It's not just about sensational moments, it's about a sustained ecosystem of control where exhaustion, financial leverage, and humiliation kept staff silent. Viewers start connecting the dots. Power isn't only physical, it's economic and emotional too.
As time went on, her reluctance to participate was only because she wanted more from the relationship. You read that text message that was also presented.
Clark's final revelations chart a map of enemies, paranoia, and hip-hop rivalries weaponized into intimidation. On day one of her job, Diddy allegedly drags her to Central Park after dark, grilling her over ties to Suge Knight and warning, "If anything happens, I'll have to kill you." Years later at MTV headquarters, she overhears him telling security he likes guns and has unfinished business with 50 Cent, now producing a Netflix docuseries on these very allegations. The message, Clark claims, was constant: stay loyal or become collateral damage. Layer these threats onto the kidnapping, gun raid, and unpaid labor, and a 20-year pattern emerges. A culture where violence and celebrity clout insulated Combs from consequences. As the prosecution rests, jurors must weigh whether these stories form a mosaic of coercion or a patchwork of exaggerations. Either way, tomorrow's witness could tip the balance, so don't blink.
Cassie as a consensual partner in these freak-offs. Now, the prosecution had to know about these messages, right? So why not bring them up while they were questioning her?
The prosecution fires its final volley. A rapid-fire roll call of witnesses: Regina Ventura, Dawn Richard, and Kid Cudi, each echoing Capricorn Clark's tale of guns, threats, and freak-off coercion. The gallery leans in as Clark repeats Diddy's ultimatum. "If you guys don't convince him, I'll kill all of you. If you tell on him, he's gonna hurt us all." A ripple of disbelief sweeps the jury box. One member's jaw literally drops. For a heartbeat, the courtroom is silent. No coughing, no shuffling, just the weight of 20 years of alleged terror hanging in the air. Prosecutors stitch those stories into a single narrative, a 2-decade scheme to coerce women at gunpoint and keep them inside a drug-fueled orbit. Yet the defense counters that Clark is embellishing, and Sean Combs, who pleaded not guilty after his 2024 arrest on trafficking and racketeering charges, maintains the witnesses are bitter ex-employees. Tomorrow, a forensic accountant is slated to dissect Diddy's finances. One number could swing everything. So was Capricorn Clark's testimony the smoking gun or smoke and mirrors?
You're going to testify. I won't even say his name. He is an evil being, and it's going to pay.
Who figures out how to compromise everybody by providing this crazy freak-off party. Everybody's got to put their phones away.
Isn't there a video with Kamala?
She was at one of the Diddy parties?
Isn't she in the background with...
It might have been the difference between Diddy parties and freak-offs. Oh, my God.
They're giving him shit, too, because he's sitting in his the guy from Chappelle's Show?
Yeah. Okay, but that's not the Diddy party.
No, yeah, it's not like they were kind of... You think Diddy was rogue, or Diddy was like a Epstein type, working for somebody?
That's a good question. I'm feeling really good. I just feel amazing. You're all mollied up. You don't know what the fuck you're doing. Probably a combination of things they give you.
And it's all being filmed.
You don't even think there's anything wrong with being there. Meanwhile, you're getting drugged up and filmed. And then they're passing out punch. Have some punch, Aaron. And you have some punch, and all of a sudden you're like... And then Dave's there, too. And then Russell Simmons, too. Oh, boy. But is that at a party, or is that just a group of them together?
They were like on a yacht or something like that.
Well, it would be a
'Cause he had the
great
juice
way to,
on a lot of people.
compromise celebrities. Yeah.
Yeah.
And get them to say whatever you want them to do, get them to do whatever projects you'd like them to do. Crazy. Now, if that's not an intelligence agency operation, it's just one fucking evil super genius. And, you know, if you're a bunch of other celebrities are there, you're like, oh, look, Bill Clinton's here. This is fine.
Yeah.
This is cool. Look at this. Like, Brad Pitt's here. Oh, this is cool.
I've had to turn down $50 million 4 times. 4 times. Just to protect my integrity and that virgin hole I was telling you about. Right.
Encounters, and I just want to protect her, you know? I don't want her to go through anything I went through. I don't wish that upon anybody. Yeah, if she ever needs me, I'm just a call away.
Joe Rogan isn't a guy who tiptoes around uncomfortable truths. And on a recent episode of his podcast, he might have cracked open something much bigger than a celebrity scandal. While most of the media is tiptoeing around the Diddy trial, Rogan dove in head first. But what he said wasn't just about Diddy being accused of crimes. It was about why this is happening now, and who else might be involved. According to Rogan, this isn't just about parties, power, or even exploitation. It's about control. The kind of control that only works when powerful people are compromised, hidden cameras, drugged-up celebrities, private freak-offs with no phones allowed. And maybe, just maybe, Diddy wasn't acting alone. Maybe he was part of a system, or even being used by something much bigger to gather leverage on Hollywood's elite. He compared it to Epstein, to intelligence operations, to cultural manipulation on a global scale. And he asked a question that no one in mainstream media seems to be touching. Are they going after Diddy because he got sloppy, or because he knows too much? If Rogan's right, this trial might just be the tip of the iceberg.
Combs allegedly planned and controlled the sex performances, which he called freak-offs, and he often electronically recorded them. The freak-offs sometimes lasted days at a time.
Joe Rogan didn't say Diddy was innocent, but he did question why everything is blowing up now. The lawsuits, the FBI raids, the headlines, all at once. On his podcast, Rogan pointed out something that a lot of people have started to notice. The timing feels strategic. Diddy has been throwing these wild parties for decades. Rumors have floated around for years. So why is it suddenly a federal emergency? Rogan's theory? Diddy's being burned. Not necessarily for what he did, but for what he knows. He's not just another celebrity in trouble. He's a guy who's been around everyone, billionaires, politicians, A-list actors. He threw the parties. He had the cameras. He made the connections. And now, Rogan says, he might be getting cleaned up because he's too messy. Or because someone needs to make him disappear before certain secrets come out. It's the same playbook we saw with Epstein. One guy takes the fall while everyone who used the system walks away untouched. Rogan's not defending Diddy. But he's asking the question no one wants to answer. Is Diddy the monster, or just the messenger who got too loud?
The person that the you of then was on a path of self-destruction.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I would have, for sure. 100%. Yeah. It would have been no bueno. It was bad. I don't know if I'd be alive, for sure.
For years, "Ain't no party like a Diddy party" was just a catchy phrase, a brag about celebrity nightlife. But Joe Rogan tore the shine off that myth, asking what really went on behind those velvet ropes. According to him, everyone knew about the parties. Everyone talked about them. But no one ever asked the obvious question: what was actually happening once the cameras were off and the phones were locked away? Rogan listed names casually. LeBron James, Ashton Kutcher, Kamala Harris, Russell Simmons. They weren't accused of anything, but they were seen at the same parties, in the same photos, on the same yachts. It was all fun and games, until Diddy's empire started to crack. Suddenly, those party memories looked different. What if they weren't just parties? What if they were setups? Stages for something far more sinister? The silence from the A-list crowd is deafening. No one's coming to Diddy's defense. No one's even acknowledging the storm. Rogan posed it plainly. If these parties were as wild as the rumors say, how many people saw something and just walked away? Or worse, how many joined in thinking no one would ever talk?
I think this was on Apple Music. And he was speaking about another young artist that was coming up, Billie Eilish, and Eilish. And he was basically speaking about how he wanted to protect her because she was now another young person, a rising artist in the industry.
Joe Rogan didn't just speculate about wild parties. He painted a picture of something darker, freak-offs designed to compromise people. These weren't your average Hollywood gatherings. According to Rogan, they were carefully orchestrated setups. No phones allowed, drinks that made you feel too good, hidden cameras in places no one expected, and celebrities, actors, athletes, politicians, all letting their guard down in the name of fun. But what if it wasn't just fun? Rogan floated a chilling theory. What if these parties were used to gather blackmail material? Think about it. Get a powerful person high, drunk, or seduced, film what happens. And now you've got leverage for life. You don't need to threaten them, you just let them know, we saw everything. It sounds like a conspiracy. But Rogan pointed out how eerily similar it sounds to intelligence agency tactics, the kind used to control foreign diplomats or political enemies. Only this time, it's aimed at Hollywood. And if Diddy was the one running the show, filming everything and holding the keys, then maybe this isn't just about his crimes. Maybe it's about the people who can't risk those tapes ever seeing the light of day.
Federal prosecutors allege Combs used his power and wealth to coerce and exploit alleged victims for decades. If convicted, Combs would be spending the rest of his life.
Joe Rogan didn't shy away from making one of the boldest comparisons yet. Diddy and Epstein. On the surface, they're worlds apart. One was a music mogul, the other a disgraced financier. But Rogan pointed out a disturbing similarity. Both were surrounded by powerful people, both hosted secretive parties, and both operated in a world where no one ever seemed to ask questions. But the real red flag? The Epstein client list still hasn't been released. Ghislaine Maxwell is sitting in prison for trafficking minors. But no names of buyers have ever been confirmed. Rogan said what everyone else is thinking. How is that even possible? If someone's been jailed for providing, then who exactly was consuming? That eerie silence feels familiar in the Diddy case. Allegations of trafficking, coercion, and abuse are piling up. But just like with Epstein, it's starting to look like Diddy might be the only one on the chopping block. Rogan's take? That's by design. It's not about justice, it's about protection. Someone takes the fall, so the rest of the names stay buried. And if Diddy's list ever surfaced, it could blow up the industry overnight.
Got a bad financial incentive. And so, look, so much of this just comes down to the jurors are going to be sitting feet away from her. I mean, I've been in these courtrooms. They're going to be 4 feet away from her.
Diddy isn't just dealing with rumors. He's facing serious federal charges. As Joe Rogan pointed out, the charges aren't just your typical celebrity scandal fare. We're talking racketeering, sex trafficking, transportation to engage in prostitution, and coercion. But strangely, despite viral video evidence of him assaulting his ex-girlfriend Cassie in a hotel hallway, he hasn't even been charged with assault. Rogan highlighted what feels like a glaring contradiction. The public is focused on the wild stories, bandanas, balconies, and bizarre sexual control, but prosecutors are focused elsewhere. Why? What are they not talking about? What are they trying to avoid putting on the record? In one particularly disturbing detail, prosecutors claimed Diddy once dangled a woman over a balcony to intimidate her. Another time, he allegedly forced his partner to sleep with strangers while he watched. Yet the legal system isn't addressing these specific incidents directly. According to Rogan, that's not just weird, it's suspicious. He asked the hard question, are they narrowing the charges to keep the real story from unraveling? Because if the full scope of what's been alleged ever came to trial, too many powerful names might get dragged in with him.
What about the documentaries and stuff like that that have been put out about him and some of the allegations against him and people essentially co-signing on what he's being accused of because they're highlighting his behavior?
When the FBI raided Diddy's homes, it wasn't just a high-stakes legal operation, it turned into something out of a movie. Joe Rogan recounted one of the wildest moments. A man sprinting from the scene wearing a black sports bra, red tights, long eyelashes, and shouting, "I'm a celebrity!" That man was rapper Saucy Santana, and whether he was involved or just caught up in the chaos, the internet exploded. Rogan couldn't help but joke about it, but the underlying point was serious. These raids weren't subtle. The government rolled in with Hummers, tactical teams, and a mission. They weren't just there to arrest someone, they were hunting for something. possibly tapes, documents, or digital evidence that could blow the case wide open. The presence of artists, performers, and influencers at Diddy's homes raises the question, were they just guests or part of something much bigger? Rogan pointed out that Diddy owned multiple homes, and rumors say he kept people there, sometimes for days. If even a fraction of the stories are true, those houses weren't just mansions. They were carefully managed ecosystems of silence, power, and spectacle. And now the walls are closing in.
18 years old, and I should mention he was signed by Usher to a label that was owned jointly by both Scooter Braun and Usher, and he was considered Usher's protege. He has been described Usher as his mentor.
Joe Rogan took the conversation even deeper, asking if Diddy's entire setup looked too organized to be random. According to Rogan, the idea that one man orchestrated all these parties, invited high-level celebrities, banned phones, served spiked drinks, installed hidden cameras, and collected compromising footage, that sounds less like a party planner and more like an intelligence operation. Think about it. If you wanted to control culture, media, and the public narrative, what better way than to compromise the people who shape it? Actors, musicians, influencers, politicians, all caught on tape doing things they can't ever admit to. Now they're easy to manage. One threat, one leak, and their careers, maybe their lives, are over. Rogan doesn't claim Diddy was a government agent, but he raises a chilling possibility. Was Diddy working with someone or for someone? Maybe he got too confident. Maybe he became a liability. Maybe he forgot that when you're the guy with the blackmail, you're also the guy everyone wants to disappear. If this was an op, then Diddy wasn't just part of the machine. He may have been the tool. And tools, when they're no longer useful, get replaced, or worse, silenced.
Than what he or she said in a documentary, or leaves out a detail, or adds a detail that they didn't say in the documentary, then that's absolutely fair game for cross-examination. And I assume in this case...
Joe Rogan peeled back the curtain on something few outsiders understand: the dark intersection of the music industry and street power. He explained that in the early days of hip-hop, especially in the 90s, making it big didn't just mean selling records. It meant surviving the streets. Artists didn't just perform in glamorous arenas. They played local hood clubs, often owned or controlled by drug dealers who used the venues to launder money. This is where the idea of checking in comes from. The unspoken rule that if you're performing in someone's city, especially someone with real power, you pay your respects or risk getting robbed, or worse. Rogan explained that people like Diddy didn't rise in a vacuum. They learned how to navigate the game, sometimes by playing both sides, the businessman in daylight and the street-connected figure at night. So when Diddy started throwing lavish parties and inviting the elite, was it just about luxury or about control? Rogan suggests this wasn't a fluke. It was a learned skill, rooted in decades of survival in a world where power, fear, and influence go hand in hand. And now, that world is catching up to him.
One person who was always anti-Diddy and was always speaking about Diddy as a problematic person was 50 Cent.
He would do a lot of foul shit. Like behind the scenes, he would do some foul shit.
Joe Rogan didn't just talk about Diddy. He exposed the entire machine. This isn't just about one celebrity on trial. It's about the system that protects predators, buries evidence, and silences victims. If even half of what's been said is true, Diddy wasn't the architect. He was the enabler, or worse, the puppet. And now that the strings are snapping, everyone's scrambling to cover their tracks. The real question isn't if Diddy goes down. It's who else falls with him, or gets protected at all costs. Because this story, it's far from over.
Diddy Combs is facing another long list of sexual misconduct allegations. He's in jail awaiting trials on charges of trafficking women for sex parties. He's pleaded not guilty. An attorney in Houston says he represents 120 people who say Combs abused them as well. The allegations are disturbing.
Our youngest victim at the time of the occurrence was 9 years old. We have an individual who was 14 years old. We have one who was 15. 25 of the 120 individuals who are plaintiffs in these cases were minors at the time of the acts complained of.
Combs' lawyer said he denies any claim that he sexually abused anyone, including minors.
The last hearing before Sean Combs' trial starts. When he walked into federal court today, he appeared to be looking for his family. They've pretty much been at all of the hearings that I've been to, but there was no presence of his sons or his mother or his sister who had previously been at those hearings. What came out of today's hearing? Number one, the government acknowledged that they offered Combs a plea deal. Combs acknowledged he has no interest in taking that. They're going to move forward with the trial. They also talked about the jury selection process, which one legal expert I spoke to said is probably the most important thing that you want to pay close attention to before the actual trial starts.
On September 16, 2024, music mogul Sean Diddy Combs was arrested in New York City and charged with racketeering, trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, and transportation to engage in relations for money. Prosecutors allege Diddy ran a criminal enterprise involving forced labor, kidnapping, and bribery.
I got back in and called Sean Combs again. I was looking for him. I wanted to fight him, you know.
Did he answer?
Yeah, he said, "I'm on my way." I thought to myself...
At this moment, the defense objected on the grounds of non-responsive and was overruled. And the judge told the prosecution to ask a new question.
When you saw Cassie, how did she seem?
Depressed.
Did you see Cassie in Connecticut?
Yes, she needed it.
Did Mr. Combs call you?
Yes, he hit me a few times.
Hit?
Called me.
And so we're going to have a lot of information coming at these jurors fast and furiously. We will see Sean Diddy Combs in court today to decide what the fate will be. But opening statements, Sarah, this is the moment you're going to hear from the prosecution to lay out their case. What will they allege? What do they want the jurors to know, to hang on to, and what will be an 8 to 10 week trial?
What do Barack Obama, Britney Spears, and Michael B. Jordan have in common? On the surface, absolutely nothing. But in a federal courtroom buzzing with whispers, those names were spoken out loud, not in fan fiction or tabloid gossip, but during the real-life trial of Sean Diddy Combs. What started as a shocking case of abuse allegations from singer Cassie Ventura has evolved into something far more explosive, a swirling vortex of celebrity names, surprising testimonies, and behind-the-scenes stories that no one ever imagined would come to light. As the courtroom delved deeper, it wasn't just Diddy's empire under scrutiny. A-list stars, political giants, and cultural icons found their names appearing in the most unlikely of places.
We're also expecting to hear from an escort who is seen as a witness in this case as well. We heard last week from the defense they're planning on attacking Ventura as well, saying that she was mutual in the domestic violence in this case, saying that she was violent toward Combs.
Jury selection lists, sworn testimonies, and sealed depositions. Some were innocent references. Others tied to allegations so dark they left the courtroom in stunned silence. This isn't just a celebrity trial. It's a mirror held up to the industry, exposing who stood close, who looked away, and who may have known too much. And the most disturbing part? We're still in the early chapters. Let's explore every name mentioned, every connection suggested, and why it matters now more than ever. The storm didn't begin with courtroom chatter. It started with Cassie Ventura. Once known simply as Diddy's girlfriend and a rising R&B star, she entered the court not as a performer but as a survivor. What she revealed changed everything. In painful detail, Cassie recounted a relationship marked by fear, control, and what she termed freak-offs. Shocking, coerced encounters with strangers allegedly orchestrated by Diddy himself.
There is the video, the surveillance video from 2016 in a hotel showing the vicious attack by Sean Combs on Cassandra Ventura. And of course, there's other evidence alluded to in the indictment. We expect to see some of these bottles of baby oil and lubricant from the so-called freak-off.
Her words weren't merely testimony. They opened a chilling window into a life of manipulation and psychological torment. She recounted the moments she attempted to leave, only to be pulled back in by threats and isolation. Cassie expressed her fears for her own safety and that of those around her. She wasn't just protecting herself, she was safeguarding everyone Diddy had power over. The courtroom was silent as she recounted specific incidents, including being forced to carry out acts while security and assistants looked the other way. When she finally broke free, she did so quietly yet powerfully, by filing the civil suit that would crack the door open for everything that followed. But Cassie's story wasn't the end. It was only the match. The fire was coming next. Few people expected Kid Cudi to take the stand, but when he didn't hold back. Calm, measured, and with the weight of years in his eyes, Cudi revealed a dark chapter that shocked the courtroom and possibly changed the trajectory of the entire trial.
You called Sean Combs?
I did. He said, I'm over here waiting for you.
When you arrived, what did the outside look like?
Pretty normal.
Any security camera?
Yes, but I found out they weren't working. But the security cameras had been moved.
Did you move them?
No.
What did you see inside your home?
Gifts were open, some stuff I got from Chanel, and my dog was locked up in the bathroom.
How did you usually leave your dog?
I let him roam.
How long had you had your dog?
3 years.
What changes were behavior of your dog after the break-in?
Jittery, on edge all the time.
He spoke about a time when he briefly dated Cassie, a decision that, according to him, nearly cost him his life. Shortly after the relationship began, his car exploded in his driveway. Many believed it was a freak accident at the time. However, in court, Cuddy testified that he had always suspected Diddy was behind it, and that the timing was no coincidence. The jury leaned in. This wasn't tabloid fodder. This was a respected artist, under oath, connecting the dots between a personal vendetta and a terrifying act of retaliation. Even more alarming, Cuddy mentioned that after the explosion, he received messages that made it clear, stop or things could get worse. Outside the courtroom, rap peers were divided. Young Thug allegedly called Cuddy's testimony disloyal, while others praised his courage. But the message was clear. If true, Diddy's influence reached far beyond the studio.
What was her demeanor?
Very stressed and worried.
Where did you go?
The Sunset Marquee.
Why?
I thought it was safe, off the radar.
Who else did you speak with?
Capricorn Clark. She sounded near tears.
What did she say?
That Sean Combs in the car, near my house.
At this moment, the defense objected but was overruled.
What Cuddy said next only added to the darkness. The drama didn't start with testimony. It began even before the trial officially kicked off. During jury selection, attorneys read a list of names to potential jurors, asking if any would affect their impartiality. However, this wasn't a typical list. It featured names that raised eyebrows across the nation: Barack Obama, Britney Spears, Michael B. Jordan, Kanye West, and Mike Myers. Why these names? Were they involved? Were they witnesses? The reality was less shocking, but still informative. The court clarified that the names were provided to reveal any personal connections or biases among the jurors. Some jurors had worked with, followed, or openly supported the mentioned celebrities, and the defense wasn't taking any chances. But including these names in such a high-stakes trial had a powerful effect. It blurred the line between the courtroom and celebrity culture. Suddenly, it wasn't just about Diddy, it was about who might have been close enough to know something. Though none of these figures were accused of wrongdoing, the mere act of having their names read aloud in a federal courtroom ignited headlines and speculation. While this move may have been procedural, it suggested just how wide the net in this case might stretch. Dawn Richard wasn't just another voice in the crowd, she was once part of Diddy's inner circle. As a member of Danity Kane, a girl group formed by Diddy himself, she had a front row seat to the line.
Today in a New York federal courtroom, Sean Diddy Combs told the judge he was, quote, a little nervous. The rap mogul's criminal trial began this morning. He is sex trafficking, racketeering, and more. The two sides are now in the process of selecting a jury of 12, plus all
lifestyle that surrounded him. But in the courtroom, she didn't come to discuss music. She came to share what she saw and what she feared. Her testimony was quiet yet devastating. Dawn recalled moments when she allegedly witnessed Diddy explode in rage toward Cassie, not behind closed doors but in full view of others. She described a culture of fear in which staff and artists alike were expected to remain silent, fall in line, and never question the boss. According to her, people who spoke to Cassie or even appeared sympathetic toward her were quickly iced out, punished socially or professionally. She portrayed an environment where loyalty to Diddy was non-negotiable, and stepping out of line could end a career. Dawn's choice to testify surprised many. Few individuals from Diddy's past have come forward. However, her statements carried significant weight, not only as a former artist, but also as someone who lived under Diddy's influence. And her account wasn't the only one. If anyone understood what truly happened behind closed doors, it was the people who were paid to clean up the mess, literally. Former assistants and household staff took the stand, and their testimonies painted a disturbing picture of life inside Diddy's inner sanctum. One former assistant described her task of cleaning up after wild, drug-fueled parties, events that left more than just physical messes.
What did you say?
That I didn't want to talk with him. He broke into my house, hurt my dog.
Did you and Ms. Ventura break up?
Yes.
What about your car?
My dog's babysitter called me and told me my car was on fire.
Where were you?
At a relative of my ex-girlfriend.
Where did you go?
To my house, 8925 Hollywood Hills Road.
Let me show you 6 pictures. Do you recognize?
My Porsche.
She recalled finding broken furniture, bruised guests, and signs of violence, but was instructed to remain silent and act like nothing happened. Her job, she said, wasn't just about scheduling meetings. It involved managing chaos and covering up the aftermath. Others described strange demands and unsettling routines. One assistant mentioned that Diddy had a strict rule about never being looked at directly unless he spoke first. Another claimed he would react harshly over the smallest mistakes, once reportedly throwing a phone across the room because his cheeseburger didn't come with applesauce, his preferred side. These were not simply diva moments. Based on their accounts, they were part of a larger pattern of intimidation and control. The staff weren't celebrities, but their stories were compelling. All of them led to the same conclusion. Diddy's empire wasn't solely constructed on music. It was founded on fear. As the trial continued, the list of celebrity names became increasingly bizarre, unexpected, and deeply symbolic. Barack Obama, Britney Spears, Michael B. Jordan, all names you'd anticipate seeing at a Hollywood awards show, not in a federal courtroom. Yet, there they were, intricately woven into testimony, cross-examinations, and witness lists.
And we have more breaking news. Opening statements are underway in the Sean Diddy Combs sex trafficking trial. Prosecutors claim Combs ran a criminal enterprise with his trusted inner circle and committed crime after crime for 20 years. Now the defense is responding, accusing the government of trying to turn choices among consenting adults into a racketeering case.
It began with Cassie's inner circle. Her makeup artist, Myla Morales, who had worked with both Rihanna and Jennifer Lopez, took the stand, reflecting on Cassie's changing appearance and mood throughout the relationship. Then came the bombshell. Morales once did Cassie's makeup for a shoot with Wiz Khalifa, and even attended events where Rihanna and Ryan Leslie were present. The layers of celebrity connections kept stacking. Britney Spears? She was one of the guests at Cassie's 21st birthday, a party Cassie told the court she didn't even want. That was all him, she said of Diddy, distancing herself from the guest list that included music legends and industry insiders like Dallas Austin. Then came the unexpected mention of Barack Obama. According to Diddy's former staff member, one of the rapper's many ecstasy pills was reportedly shaped like the former president's face. It wasn't a joke, it was presented under oath, and that's just scratching the surface. Cassie's testimony didn't merely recount what happened, it revealed who else got pulled into the storm. And one of the most surprising names to emerge? Actor Michael B. Jordan. During a break in their relationship around 2015, Cassie mentioned that she briefly dated Jordan while filming a dance movie in South Africa.
The final phase of jury selection in Sean Diddy Combs' federal criminal trial is getting underway. 12 jurors and 6 alternates. They are expected to be seated this morning, and then opening statements begin. We could see also the prosecution's key witness.
Diddy, according to her testimony, was furious. Even though they weren't together at the time, she didn't witness his reaction directly, but she told the court he allegedly tried to reach her afterwards, suggesting his obsession with control extended far beyond the relationship itself. Chris Brown's name came up next, linked to a 2013 incident in which Diddy allegedly accused Cassie of dancing with the singer. On the stand, she denied that it ever happened. Still, the line of questioning revealed how far Diddy's jealousy could spiral, often without any evidence at all. Other celebrities were mentioned during jury screening, including Destiny's Child's Michelle Williams, actress Lauren London, and comedian Mike Myers. Even Jimmy Iovine and Usher were included through anecdotes about violent outbursts and lavish dinners where abuse allegedly occurred in front of music royalty. By the time Don Richard repeated Diddy's chilling threats, "I end people," the jury wasn't merely listening. They were stunned. And the public? Still trying to understand how far this web of silence truly stretched.
Combs' former girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, testified today. You remember that CNN last year published a hotel surveillance video from 2016 showing Combs attacking Ventura. He has pleaded not guilty to the charges of racketeering and sex trafficking. If convicted, Sean Combs could spend the rest of his life in prison.
As the trial unfolds, one thing is clear. This isn't just about Diddy. It's about the ecosystem that allowed him to thrive unchecked for decades. Testimonies from former lovers like Cassie Ventura, insiders like Don Richard, respected artists like Kid Cudi, and anonymous assistants who observed it all collectively add another layer to a deeply unsettling portrait. And then there are the names: Obama, Britney, Kanye, Michael B. Jordan, mentioned in court not as defendants or witnesses, but as cultural signposts in a case that now blurs the lines between justice, power, and celebrity. Even if they were listed only for jury screening, their presence speaks volumes about the reach and influence Diddy once had. What we're witnessing isn't merely a trial, it's a reckoning, a revealing of a glamorous facade to uncover the decay underneath. The silence that once shielded the powerful is shattering. And although some of these celebrities may not have been involved in the crimes under investigation, their names now resonate in a courtroom filled with uncomfortable truths. The question that lingers isn't just what did Diddy do, but who knew and who stayed quiet. In this world, silence has never been more deafening.
Day 9 of Sean Diddy Combs' federal trial saw bombshell testimony from rapper Kid Cudi, who alleged that Diddy retaliated against him after learning that Cudi was dating Cassandra Ventura Fine, culminating in a supposed Molotov cocktail attack on Kid Cudi's car.
The first witness, former Intercontinental Hotel security guard Israel Flores, testified about responding to that now infamous incident, speaking with Combs and his ex-girlfriend, a key witness in this case, Cassie Ventura.
Everyone knew he was the devil. He's been the devil for 30 years. He's been covered and protected by not only Clive Davis, but Lucian Grange.
She was saying that she wanted to get her phone, her bag, she wanted to leave. But Combs told her, "You're not going to leave." The second witness today was an escort testifying that he participated at a freak-off at the Gramercy Park Hotel.
The last hearing before Sean Combs' trial starts. When he walked into federal court today, he appeared to be looking for his family. They've pretty much been at all of the hearings that I've been to, but there was no presence of his sons or his mother or his sister who had previously...
The Sean Diddy Combs trial has started, and I told you that I would give you an update when it's pertinent. So a lot of things have happened today, including they have chosen the 12 jurors that will decide Diddy's fate.
We have the latest from federal court in the Sean Combs criminal case. Status of jury selection, what Diddy's going to be wearing, violation of a gag order, rejecting a plea offer.
At trial, Combs will ditch the jail garb and wear ordinary clothes. As his lawyers argue, the evidence shows consenting adults being intimate in their own way. The decision guarantees Combs will face trial beginning just 4 days from now. That will test whether one of music's most prolific figures used his power, wealth, and fame to exploit both women and men for decades.
Nobody expected Kid Cudi to take the stand, but when he did, what came out of his mouth turned a high-profile trial into a full-blown spectacle. Imagine this, a quiet courtroom buzzing with tension. Then suddenly one of the most respected names in music points a finger at Sean Diddy Combs and accuses him of something straight out of a movie. We're not talking drama. We're talking home invasions, car explosions, and a feud that started over a woman the world thought was long out of the picture, Cassie Ventura. In his testimony, Kid Cudi didn't hold back. He painted Diddy as a man obsessed with control, even describing him as a real-life Marvel supervillain.
Music mogul Sean Diddy Combs back behind bars, a magistrate judge denying him bail, saying that there were no conditions that she could conceive of that would make her confident that he would appear again for other court appearances. The judge saying, "My concern is this is a crime that happens behind closed doors."
But here's the twist. The story he told might be more real than anyone wants to believe. Why would Diddy allegedly target Kid Cudi? What truly happened that night when the car exploded? And why did the judge have to intervene when things got personal? This isn't merely a music industry scandal. It's a glimpse into the type of chaos that fame can't conceal. And the deeper we dig, the uglier it becomes. The case against Sean Diddy Combs has already been described as the most explosive trial in music history, and we're just getting started. What began as a quiet federal investigation has now revealed decades of disturbing behavior allegedly concealed beneath the glitz and glamour of Diddy's empire.
Sean P. Diddy Combs' family arrived for day one of his trafficking trial.
How is your father feeling today?
They walked into the federal courthouse in Manhattan, hand in hand, in a gesture of solidarity.
The charges, racketeering, coercion, violence, and none of this is hearsay. These are sworn testimonies inside a federal courtroom. It began with Cassie Ventura, a woman whose silence was once mistaken for peace. But when she finally spoke, it unleashed a tidal wave. She described years of psychological warfare, threats, and what she called living under surveillance. Her claims ignited the fuse. But then, Kid Cudi stepped in, and when he testified, the courtroom fell silent. This wasn't just another ex-employee or anonymous source. This was a Grammy-nominated artist, but a peer. What he revealed made it clear. The fear Cassie described wasn't paranoia, it was real.
For it to go so fast, for a federal trial to finalize a jury, do the strike process, and there was a little contention about that. The defense argued that they struck 7 of 9 black jurors, so there was a bit of a disagreement about that.
In 2011, something happened that allegedly sent Diddy spiraling. Cassie Ventura briefly dated Kid Cudi. It wasn't public, it wasn't scandalous, but to Diddy, it was a betrayal. According to multiple sources and sworn court documents, Diddy still considered Cassie his, even though their relationship had already begun to crumble. He couldn't tolerate the thought of her moving on, especially with someone respected, successful, and in the same industry. Cudi didn't gloat. He didn't speak about the relationship, but he didn't need to. The silence was enough to trigger Diddy's wrath, according to Cassie's own testimony.
This is going to be such a massive trial, like maybe the biggest Hollywood trial. God knows which way it's going to go. Is it going to go on for weeks?
Oh, for sure, weeks.
She told the court that Diddy threatened to blow up Cudi's car, and everyone thought she was exaggerating until the car actually exploded. Weeks after Cassie's warning, Kid Cudi's Porsche was parked outside his home in the Hollywood Hills. In the middle of the night, it erupted in flames. Cudi didn't say much publicly at the time, but insiders close to him revealed he was deeply shaken. Authorities later confirmed that the fire displayed all the signs of being started by a Molotov cocktail, a deliberate, targeted attack. However, no one was arrested. There were no fingerprints, no cameras, and no official suspect until now.
He set the tone by immediately as the first witness taking jurors back to 2016. It was March 5th when Flores said he responded to a call from hotel staff of a woman in distress on the 6th floor.
In court, Cudi testified that he believed it was Diddy, not because he saw him, but due to what Cassie had warned him about, and because just weeks earlier someone had broken into his home, unwrapping Christmas gifts and locking his dog in the bathroom. It wasn't just theft, it felt like a message. Standing in front of the court, Kid Cudi didn't hold back. He described the emotional toll of being targeted, and the cold look he said Diddy gave him at a party months later. He looked at me like a Marvel supervillain, Cudi told the court, like someone who knew what he'd done and wasn't sorry. The room was tense. Diddy sat motionless, jaw clenched, eyes fixed straight ahead.
Did he ever make $1 million deposit from anybody in the record business? Puff was friends with Jimmy Hitchman.
It wasn't merely an accusation, it was a characterization. A man who thinks he can get away with anything because for decades he has. Cudi's voice didn't shake. He wasn't there to perform. He was there because, according to him, he had carried the truth for over a decade. And now that Cassie had spoken out, he felt he had to as well. As Cudi spoke about his brief relationship with Cassie, Diddy's lawyer pressed hard. Too hard. At one point, the attorney began questioning Cudi about the nature of his time with Cassie, insinuating it was just a stunt or a fling. The judge interrupted. Firmly, he warned the defense to back off, stating that their line of questioning was irrelevant and borderline inappropriate.
Diddy's lawyers had argued that he had made good faith efforts by showing up in New York, ready to surrender to face these charges, but prosecutors said that he could not be trusted, that he has a history of trying to intimidate witnesses, including some who are going to be witnesses in this case.
In that moment, the courtroom wasn't just witnessing a trial, it was watching a legacy unravel in real time. Diddy's team appeared rattled. The jury leaned in, and the atmosphere of the room had shifted entirely. Because it was no longer just about what Diddy may have done, it was about whether anyone could stop him. Cassie had informed the court weeks earlier that Diddy once screamed at her, furious about her involvement with Kid Cudi. She stated he threatened her life and then threatened Cudi's. She didn't believe him at first, until that night. And when the car exploded, she said she knew. It wasn't random. It wasn't an accident. It was a warning. He wanted to send a message, she told the jury, to me and to him. That message, you don't move on unless I say so. The prosecution has used this story to illustrate a pattern: intimidation, violence, and control, not just over romantic partners, but over anyone who crosses Diddy's invisible lines. Since the trial began, whispers in the industry have become louder. Who else knew? Who else remained silent? And most importantly, who's next? Kid Cudi's story opened up something. Insiders suggest that more names could emerge: bodyguards, staff, industry peers. Because what's becoming clear is this: the allegations against Diddy weren't isolated incidents. They were part of a larger pattern, a network of fear, a system of silence, and now that the wall is crumbling, the secrets are spilling out. As the trial is unfolding, the courtroom heard from several key witnesses, including Kid Cudi, who testified about the alleged break-in at his home and the subsequent firebombing of his car. The prosecution also presented testimonies from Cassie Ventura's mother and former employees of Combs, painting a picture of a pattern of intimidation and abuse. Looking ahead, the court expects testimonies from more individuals who were close to Combs during the relevant period. These upcoming accounts are anticipated to offer additional insight into the allegations and the scope of the alleged misconduct. The judge has indicated that the trial should wrap up by July 4th, advising jurors to refrain from discussing the case during the upcoming holiday weekend. The revelations from the trial have sent shockwaves through the music industry, prompting discussions about power dynamics and accountability. Kid Cudi's testimony, in particular, has underscored the potential consequences of unchecked authority within the entertainment sector. Cassie Ventura's allegations have also highlighted the challenges faced by individuals in abusive relationships, particularly when the abuser wields considerable influence. The trial has become a focal point for discussions about consent, coercion, and the mechanisms that allow such behaviors to continue unchecked. As the proceedings continue, both the public and industry insiders are grappling with the implications of the testimonies, considering how to create a safer and more equitable environment within the entertainment world. What we're witnessing right now isn't just a trial, it's a reckoning. Kid Cudi's testimony didn't merely provide new details. It gave weight to a claim that many found hard to believe, that someone as powerful as Diddy could act without consequence for decades. But now, with every story told, the empire resembles a house of cards. Cudi's voice joins Cassie's, and together they paint a picture the world cannot unsee. The car didn't just explode, the silence did as well. And the question we're all left with is this: how many more stories are out there, waiting to be told?
Justin Bieber is standing with the alleged victims of Sean Diddy Combs, but says he is not a victim himself, in a new statement from his spokesperson.
It was hard for me being that young and being in the industry and not knowing where to turn, and everyone, telling me they love me and, just turn their back on you in a second.
A 2022 interview from Justin Bieber has resurfaced in the wake of Diddy's legal drama. In the sit-down with Zane Lowe 4 years ago, Justin isn't talking about the disgraced media mogul directly, but his past trauma in the music industry, his album Changes, and being a newlywed to wife Haley.
And he grabs Kevin Hart and pulls him off camera because Kevin Hart doesn't have a filter. After Diddy's Flavor Cam, Usher comes out with an album called Usher. It has really explicit details about watching Netflix. And of course, the album was executively produced by Puff Daddy. His mom was like, yo, what the So she grabs Usher. You got former bodyguards coming out saying, yeah, Diddy was very inappropriate with Usher. There's a rumor that Usher got sent to the hospital because of an encounter with Diddy. In fact, rumors have been circulating for like 20 years about this situation. Which brings us to Usher and Justin Bieber. See, Justin Bieber was coming up in the same way Usher was, like when he was super young. L.A. Reid again found Justin Bieber. Usher and Justin Timberlake both wanted to sign Bieber, but Bieber chooses Usher and Usher basically becomes a mentor. Now Usher then sends a young Bieber to Diddy for 48 hours. And in this interview, Diddy's saying stuff like, man, Justin is doing things that any 15-year-old would dream of doing. And the thing that's always kind of annoyed me about Diddy personally is he's always towing this imaginary line.
And his boy, they're having the times of their lives, like where we hanging out and what we doing. We can't really disclose, but it's definitely a 15-year-old's dream. I have been given custody of him. He signed to Usher.
I'm signed to Usher.
I had legal guardianship of Usher when.
For years, Justin Bieber remained quiet. While rumors swirled, headlines broke, and Diddy's empire began to crack, he stayed silent. But now, he's speaking out. And what he's revealing is darker than anyone imagined. This story was never just about Diddy. It's about how the music industry protects its own, how power shields predators, and how young artists get caught in a web they never signed up for. Justin isn't just sharing a quote or two, he's shifting the spotlight. What's being revealed could change everything.
Where we hanging out and what we doing, we can't really disclose.
When Justin Bieber burst onto the scene at just 13, he was treated like a prodigy. Instantly famous, instantly profitable. But behind the scenes, something wasn't adding up. Among the many people who entered his orbit, one name kept resurfacing: Sean "Diddy" Combs. The strange part? Diddy wasn't Bieber's manager. He wasn't producing his songs. He wasn't even involved in his day-to-day career. Yet somehow he had full access, full control, full exposure to a minor on the rise. Industry insiders started to speculate.
As soon as you turn 16, you know what I'm saying, I'm gonna let you rock this every time you come in LA. Yeah, this gonna be yours. So, every time you come in LA, it's a little dusty, but you know.
Label connections appeared to provide an excuse, but none of it clarified why Bieber, a young teen, was being drawn into Diddy's world. Private parties, exclusive retreats, late-night hangouts. It wasn't just odd, it was profoundly unsettling, and nobody had a solid explanation for why it was happening. At one point, Diddy publicly bragged about having Bieber for the next 48 hours. No management team, no parents, just him and a 15-year-old kid. "I got custody of him," Diddy said, grinning. "We're going full buck, full crazy." It sounded more like a flex than a joke, and fans noticed. The clip resurfaced years later, and the tone hits differently now.
I just want to protect her, you know? I don't want her to lose it. I don't want her to, you know, go through anything I went through. I don't wish that upon anybody.
It's not just cringy, it feels off. Videos from that time show Bieber looking nervous. Smiling, yes, but with tight lips and averted eyes. Discomfort leaked through the screen. This wasn't mentorship, this was possession. Even back then, some people could feel it, they just didn't know how to explain it. As Bieber grew up, he began to pull away. Publicly, his image was evolving. Behind the scenes, something was changing too. He encountered trouble and made headlines. The media portrayed it all as typical teen rebellion. However, Bieber later confessed that there was much more happening beneath the surface.
I expect to see a lot of strange things take place. I expect to see the defense team do a lot of steps to lighten the image of Combs.
In interviews, he's spoken about the shame, the pressure, and the emotional wounds. He said fame nearly broke him. What he doesn't say is sometimes louder than what he does because he's never fully detailed what happened. But the signs are evident in his behavior, in his eyes, in his silence, and in what he refuses to deny. Then came Yummy. At first glance, it seemed like a catchy pop video. However, fans quickly noticed something odd. The visuals were bizarre. Bright pink food, exaggerated dinner settings, unsettling close-ups, and children in adult environments.
Give up your manhood? I've never seen somebody recover from it. That was all the people that went to the puffy parties. That was all the people that did all those things thinking that there was never going to be a consequence for what they were doing.
It didn't feel like a party. It felt like a message. Theories exploded online. People claimed Bieber was trying to expose the truth, that Yummy was a cry for help, a coded signal about what he'd seen behind closed doors. He never confirmed it, but he didn't deny it either, and that silence spoke volumes. In the promotional materials, he used baby imagery, photos of toddlers and quotes about innocence. It didn't fit the pop image. It wasn't for show. It was a warning. The deeper you delve into the music industry, the more you realize it's not merely a business. It's a fortress.
It was hard for me being that young and being in the industry and not knowing where to turn, and everyone, you know, telling me they love me and, you know, just turn their back on you in a second.
A select group of influential figures controls everything, the labels, the promotions, the media narratives. If someone wants a career, they must adhere to the rules. And if they don't, they disappear. Over the years, these same executives have faced accusations of protecting predators, keeping scandals buried, and silencing victims with NDAs, hush money, or threats. Some fans believe Bieber was ensnared in that very machine, and he's been quietly attempting to break free by dropping symbolism instead of accusations and using his music rather than his words. In that world, speaking out is perilous.
Justin Bieber, he dropped the song. It went over our heads.
Which
it's actually
video?
about P. Diddy this whole time.
Which video?
The song Lonely. He even came out and said stuff about how when he was younger, he was being taken advantage of, which is true. The problem was being a victim of the diddler. What happens? Because he has so much dirt on you, if you go out into the public, he may have videos, he may have embarrassing.
Fast forward to today. Diddy is finally facing legal consequences, and with his trial comes new revelations. Prosecutors recently presented a list to jurors featuring over 100 names: celebrities, athletes, and politicians. Michael B. Jordan, Kanye West, and Mike Myers are among them. None are facing charges, but all were listed as potential references in court. Why? What do prosecutors know that we don't? Why does a case against one man involve so many high-profile names? Some believe it's not just about who was involved, it's about who was present, who knew, and who stayed silent. That silence is beginning to crack.
In the video, a then 39-year-old Combs says he and the baby singer, who was 15 at the time, will be spending 48 hours together, doing things they can't really disclose.
The trial has also brought forward new witnesses, real people, real stories. Dawn Richard, a former artist under Diddy's label, took the stand. Her testimony was chilling. She described being groped, touched without consent, and being walked in on while changing. She detailed the fear, the silence, the manipulation. And she wasn't the only one. More women have come forward, and many believe there are even more who are still too afraid to speak. Then there's Cassie. Her story made headlines when she described years of abuse, mental, emotional, and physical.
Now, where a key witness just testified in the trafficking trial of Sean Diddy Combs. R&B singer and his ex-girlfriend Cassie Ventura took the stand today. Now, we have to warn you, the details in this case are very difficult to hear.
Diddy allegedly threw a skillet at her, isolated her, and controlled her. What they describe isn't random, it's a pattern, a culture of exploitation. And it didn't happen in a vacuum. People saw, people knew. Justin issued a statement via his team, making it clear that he supports the victims, believes them, and wants justice served. However, he didn't share his personal story. Some say it's fear, others argue it's a strategy. Either way, the silence is palpable. Fans have noticed and observed the signs for years, the unease, the distance. They're not asking for gossip, they're asking for the truth because they know Justin saw something. Now, as more victims speak out, his voice could make all the difference. The music industry has always been about control. Controlling sound, controlling images, and sometimes controlling people. Young stars are treated like property. They're signed, molded, and sold. If they fight back, they're punished. For years, this system functioned effectively, but now it's beginning to falter. Social media has provided victims with a platform. Whistleblowers enjoy protection like never before. And fans, they're no longer remaining silent. They demand transparency, they call out the abuse, they connect the dots, and they rally around those who finally dare to speak. What started as one trial is now evolving into something larger. It's not just about Diddy, it's about the names behind the curtain. The deals were made in secrecy and careers were traded for silence. Every week, more receipts surface, and every day, more stories come to light. Soon, the industry won't be able to control the narrative. Justin Bieber's journey reflects this shift. He was once silent, but is now speaking out. Once protected, he is now exposed. He's not just a pop star. He's a symbol, a survivor, a warning.
The clip, which many commenters labeled as disturbing, sparked rumors that the now 31-year-old Bieber might have been victimized by the disgraced producer.
If he chooses to fully open up, the ripple effect could dismantle the very system that tried to own him. Hollywood sells dreams. But behind the red carpets and bright lights, shadows stretch far and wide. Bieber was a child when it all began. So was Cassie. So were many others. They were promised stardom, but were given manipulation, silence, and scars. Now that silence is cracking. From cryptic music videos to quiet statements to full-blown testimonies, the truth is spilling out. The industry is watching, the public is listening, and justice might finally be catching up. If Bieber chooses to share everything he knows, it won't just be a scandal. It will be a reckoning.
He set the tone by immediately as the first witness taking jurors back to 2016. It was March 5th when Flores said he responded to a call from hotel staff of a woman in distress on the 6th floor.
For it to go so fast, for a federal trial to finalize a jury, do the strike process, and there was a little contention about that. The defense argued that they struck 7 of 9 black jurors, so there was a bit of a disagreement about that.
The first witness, former Intercontinental Hotel security guard Israel Flores, testified about responding to that now infamous incident, speaking with Combs and his ex-girlfriend, a key witness in this case, Cassie Ventura.
Did he ever make $1 million deposit from anybody in the record business? Puff was friends with Jimmy Henchman.
That was all the people that went to the Puffy parties. That was all the people that did all those things thinking that there was never going to be a consequence for what they were doing. Got punked out and pimped out by some greater desire. You shouldn't have a greater desire than being a man.
She was saying that she wanted to get her phone, her bag, she wanted to leave. But Combs told her, "You're not going to leave." The second witness today was an escort testifying that he participated at a freak-off at the Gramercy Park Hotel.
Music mogul Sean Diddy Combs back behind bars, a magistrate judge denying him bail, saying that there were no conditions that she could conceive of that would make her confident that he would appear again for other court appearances. The judge saying, "My concern is this is a crime that happens behind closed doors."
She didn't go to the police, she went to the bank. Cassie Ventura's mother, Regina Ventura, sat in a federal courtroom and told jurors something no mother should ever have to say. She had to wire Sean Diddy Combs $20,000, not as a gift, not as payment for services, but because she was afraid. Afraid that if she didn't, something would happen to her daughter, and she wasn't guessing. She had seen the bruises, heard the threats, and lived the fear. That money came from her home equity loan. The bank cleared it and she sent it, but days later the money came back, yet the fear stayed. What unfolded next in that courtroom would shake everyone.
Everyone knew he was the devil. He's been the devil for 30 years. He's been covered and protected by not only Clive Davis, but Lucien Grange.
This wasn't tabloid gossip. This was sworn testimony, and it was only the beginning. Regina Ventura told the court she wired the money on December 23, 2011. That day, Cassie had emailed her in a panic. She said Diddy was threatening to release explicit footage of her on Christmas Day as some twisted form of punishment, and it wasn't the first time he had resorted to threats. According to Regina, Diddy was furious that Cassie had been seen with someone else and claimed he deserved compensation. So he demanded $20,000. Regina said she didn't hesitate. She pulled money from her home equity, wired it to Diddy's company, and tried not to cry.
The Sean Diddy Combs trial has started, and I told you that I would give you an update when it's pertinent. So a lot of things have happened today, including they have chosen the 12 jurors that will decide Diddy's fate.
The money came back days later, but Regina insisted it was never about the money. It was about control, and for a brief moment, he had it. That same Christmas Eve, Cassie arrived at her mom's house with large bruises on her thigh and lower back. Regina didn't ask where they came from because deep down she already knew, but this time, Cassie confirmed it. She told her mother the bruises were from Sean Combs. Regina did what many mothers would do. She took photos. She wanted proof, evidence, something she could hold on to in case the worst ever happened. The photos were shown in court this week, and when they appeared on the screen, the jury went silent.
Now, as far as jury selection goes, I think the biggest takeaway for me is that both sides expect to have all of this done in the matter of 3 days. Now, given just how high profile this trial is, I was kind of stunned that they seem very confident that they will be able to see the jury in that amount of time.
Regina said that was the first time Cassie told her about the abuse, but it wasn't the beginning of it. It had been happening for years, hidden, covered up, until that moment. In 2016, Regina flew to Los Angeles to celebrate her daughter's birthday. Instead, she found herself in a shouting match outside Cassie's apartment. Regina told the court that Diddy had taken Cassie's phone during an argument. When Regina confronted him, she said she screamed, cursed, and, yes, even tried to hit him. She didn't care that one of his bodyguards, D-Rock, was standing between them. All she cared about was getting that phone back.
Diddy's lawyers had argued that he had made good faith efforts by showing up in New York, ready to surrender to face these charges, but prosecutors said that he could not be trusted, that he has a history of trying to intimidate witnesses, including some who are going to be witnesses in this case.
Regina said she believed there was something on that phone, something Cassie wanted to protect. Diddy eventually gave it back, but not before he took Cassie's car. It was always the same pattern. Take something, control something, leave a scar you couldn't see. Sheree Hayes, a former exotic dancer, testified that he had been hired by Cassie using an alias. She told him she wanted a fantasy scene for her birthday. However, what started as a private dance quickly became something much darker. Hayes said that when he arrived, the furniture was covered in sheets. There were bottles of baby oil everywhere. Cassie was wearing a wig and a robe.
Sean P. Diddy Combs' family arrived for day one of his trafficking trial.
How is your father feeling today?
They walked into the federal courthouse in Manhattan, hand in hand, in a gesture of solidarity.
She told him her husband would come out later to watch, but instructed him not to speak to him or look at him. Hayes said the man emerged wearing a mask that revealed only his eyes. The man never spoke, never reacted, just watched. Hayes performed, was paid, and left, but he was called back again, 8 to 12 times. It wasn't until he saw a welcome message for Sean Combs on the hotel TV screen that he realized the masked man was Diddy. David James worked for Diddy from 2007 to 2009. He told the court that one night, he and a colleague went to pick up food in Los Angeles.
The decision guarantees Combs will face trial beginning just 4 days from now that will test whether one of music's most prolific figures used his power, wealth, and fame to exploit both women and men for decades.
They ran into Suge Knight, Diddy's longtime rival. James said they left quickly, but when Diddy found out, he demanded they go back with 3 loaded on his lap. James drove. He was terrified. They arrived, but the black SUVs Suge was in had already left. Still, James said that was the moment he realized his life was in danger. He had seen a lot while working for Diddy, but this was different. This was something out of a movie, and the fear he felt that night never fully went away. James also testified that he was often forced to take lie detector tests, not by the police, but by Diddy.
We have the latest from federal court in the Sean Combs criminal case. Status of jury selection, what Diddy's going to be wearing, violation of a gag order, rejecting a plea offer.
Jewelry would go missing or cash, and Diddy would have his staff interrogated. He said he felt trapped. If he refused the test, he risked losing his job. But the strangeness didn't stop there. James said he picked up drugs, including cocaine and for Diddy and his associates. Once, he opened Diddy's medicine bag and found ecstasy pills shaped like President Barack Obama's face. James recalled taking one during a New Year's Eve party without permission. Days later, Diddy showed him footage of him dancing and said, "I'll keep this in case I ever need it."
The last hearing before Sean Combs' trial starts, when he walked into federal court today, he appeared to be looking for his family. They've pretty much been at all of the hearings that I've been to, but there was no presence of his sons or his mother or his sister who had previously been at those hearings.
James believed it was a threat, a reminder that Diddy saw everything. James recalled one night in Miami. He had been asked to bring an iPad to Diddy's hotel room. No one answered, so he let himself in. What he saw lingered in his mind. Cassie was lying in bed still with the blanket pulled up to her neck. She lay on her back, which James thought was strange, as she always slept on her side. A naked man with long hair and a large belly ran out of the room. Diddy was in the shower. James didn't say anything. He didn't ask questions. But something about that night felt off, wrong. He said it wasn't his place to get involved, but what he witnessed, he never forgot. Cassie's former friend Carrie Morgan also took the stand. She testified that Diddy once choked her during an argument and threw a wooden hanger at her head, hitting her just behind the ear. The argument started because Diddy accused Cassie of cheating. Morgan said she begged Cassie to leave him, but Cassie claimed she couldn't. Diddy controlled everything: her job, her car, her apartment. Dawn Richard, another witness, stated she saw Diddy punch Cassie at a dinner party in front of music industry giants like Usher and Ne-Yo. She said Diddy later warned her that if she ever spoke out, she could go missing. And that was the reality. Fear was the currency, and silence was the price. When Regina Ventura finished her testimony, Diddy's lawyer stood up. He said hello, and then informed her he had no questions. That was it. No rebuttal, no cross-examination, just a silence. The courtroom was stunned. And perhaps that silence spoke louder than any defense could. Because if even a fraction of what these witnesses said is true, then Diddy isn't just facing legal charges. He's facing a collapse. An empire built on power and fear is now confronting testimony after testimony of trauma, pain, and control. The court hasn't ruled yet, but the world is watching. And the question we're all asking now is, how much did we never see?
Drika, how would you describe Cassie's demeanor when she took the stand today?
When she walked in there, Rachel, she had on a brown dress, form-fitting, visibly pregnant, head held high, and did not make any eye contact with the defendant, with Sean Combs.
What was Sean's reaction when he saw Cassie enter the courtroom?
You know, attorneys say that this is the first time that they've met since 2018.
It's day one of the celebrity trial gripping much of the nation. Sean Diddy Combs, once one of entertainment's most powerful moguls, accused of crimes so heinous, he faces the possibility of spending the rest of his life behind bars.
And we have more breaking news. Opening statements are underway in the Sean Diddy Combs trafficking trial. Prosecutors claim Combs ran a criminal enterprise with his trusted inner circle and committed crime after crime for 20 years.
This is incredibly disturbing footage, so I do want to warn our viewers, as you did. But as you said, Cassie's lawsuit, which was filed in November of 2023 and then was quickly settled overnight.
It's so difficult to reflect on the darkest times in your life, but sometimes you got to do that. I was f***ed up. I mean, I hit rock bottom. I love entertaining people. I love watching people have a good time. You know what I'm saying? I don't like the concerts when everybody has a camera up.
Yeah,
You know
right.
what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, that's all of them now.
At my concerts, you dance all night. You can't even get to your phone. You so much in the...
There's so much love going on. You all figured out. You really do. You got a key to the city. You're licking toads.
Yeah.
I mean, and apparently you survived it. Did you have to use the ambulance or was just there?
They did not know that he was recording them. I mean, when I read through that lawsuit, Rodney made it very clear that he had hidden cameras. And if you are a person like LeBron who says ain't no party like a Diddy party, you got Ashton Kutcher talking about what happens at Diddy parties stays at Diddy parties. And finally you learn via the press that actually Diddy has been collecting evidence on all of you and you don't know where those tapes are. That will buy your silence for quite some time because you're hoping that if you keep your head low, you're not going to be revealed as one of these people that was engaged.
This isn't just internet gossip. This is sworn testimony under oath in a federal courtroom. What Cassie Ventura revealed on day 5 of the Sean Diddy Combs trial didn't just shake the courtroom. It may have cracked open the very foundation of his empire. Hidden tunnels, women in masks, secret rooms. Cassie's words weren't hypothetical. They weren't allegations scribbled in a tell-all book. They were detailed, direct, and devastating. And for the first time, the rumors that had swirled for years weren't just whispers. They had a voice.
Diddy's ex wrapped up her testimony today after 4 grueling days on the stand. That's Cassie Ventura, who's 9 months pregnant, leaving her home and heading to federal court today.
The energy felt different that morning. Reporters arrived early, and the gallery was packed. Even the jurors appeared more alert than usual. Something was in the air. Cassie entered, flanked by security, tired but composed. The judge reminded everyone that decorum would be strictly enforced. Then the questioning began, and it took an unexpected turn. Instead of focusing on her relationship with Diddy, the defense asked her to walk them through the architecture of his Los Angeles mansion.
What is this? An email between me and Sean. What did you call him? Pop. Why? He asked me what I called my grandfather. I did it, but now I think it was disrespectful.
Layout, entrances, and exits. The line of questioning felt oddly technical, until one question landed like a detonation. Ms. Ventura, have you ever been inside the tunnel? The room held its breath. Cassie paused, then answered with one word. Yes. That answer changed everything. For years, there had been whispers, threads on Reddit, and wild tabloid theories, but now, under oath, someone had confirmed it. Cassie said Diddy had taken her there himself. High, erratic, and determined. The entrance, she explained, wasn't inside the house. It was outside, hidden beneath overgrown foliage near the pool.
Is he showing any reaction to what she is saying on the stand?
I can tell you that immediately, the moment she opened her mouth, you could see that Combs was listening intently to everything that she has to say, as well as those jurors.
It looked like landscaping, but beneath the leaves was a hatch. Down below, Concrete stairs, steel doors, a drop in temperature, a feeling she couldn't shake. This wasn't a panic room, she said. This was something else. What she described resembled a psychological horror film. A long, sterile corridor. Fluorescent lights cast a harsh glare. A mechanical hum buzzed in the background. No windows, no cell service. Diddy walked ahead, mumbling to himself, caught in some private ritual.
Now, where a key witness just testified in the trafficking trial of Sean Diddy Combs. R&B singer and his ex-girlfriend Cassie Ventura took the stand today. Now, we have to warn you, the details in this case are very difficult to hear.
She followed. Through a secured door, keypad access only, they entered what she referred to as a chamber. Red lighting illuminated the space. Cameras were positioned in the corners. Leather furniture adorned the room. And there was a smell she could never forget. Sweat, chemicals, and something else she couldn't name. She listed the contents: props, masks, latex outfits, and ropes. Walls are padded with soundproofing, ceiling mirrors, floor mirrors. It wasn't fantasy, she said. It was built for power. Then came the image that left the courtroom stunned. 2 women, wigs, masks. One is lying still, one beside a mounted camera. He didn't introduce them.
Everyone knew he was the devil. He's been the devil for 30 years. He's been covered and protected.
He called them performers. The tunnel wasn't just one room. She recalled 3 more. One was pitch black, except for a bench and chains. Another had a full-length mirror and a digital panel by the bed. Its function was unknown. The third contained only a chair and a box of wires. When she told Diddy she wanted to leave, he laughed. "You're not ready," he said. "It's too real for you." Before opening the final door, he whispered something that haunts her still. "This is where I bring the ones I own." She heard muffled voices behind one of the walls. Not music. Voices. She didn't ask who was behind the door. She didn't want to know. "Shh, don't tell anybody." The courtroom then shifted to a term found in Cassie's texts with Diddy: freak-offs. Once dismissed as roleplay, these now carried a sinister weight. They weren't parties. They were arranged at night, timed, scheduled, with roles assigned and sometimes recorded. Drugs were mandatory. One text: game starts at 10 p.m. No breaking character until 8 a.m. Another: bring candles, grab outfits, I want you in a wig. Sometimes there were strangers. Sometimes masked guests. Cassie said she didn't know their names. I was told to trust him. One message stood out: no safe word this time, I want control. She testified she often didn't remember what happened. Agreeing while drugged, she said, isn't consent. Cassie detailed the substances used during these sessions: opiates, benzos, MDMA, and pills she didn't recognize, sometimes handed directly from Diddy and other times from his staff. I didn't ask what it was, I just took it. One night, she awoke on the floor of his Miami property, the camera light still on. She had no memory of how she got there and no clue who had been in the room. Eventually, she found a clip on Diddy's laptop. It showed her with 2 men. She had no memory of the event. I begged him to delete it, she said. His response? I keep everything, for leverage. Cassie claimed Diddy controlled more than just the bedroom. He dictated where she went, whom she saw, and what she took. He called 50 times if I didn't answer. If she sought help, he intervened. Once, she entered rehab posing as a luxury spa. He showed up and persuaded the staff that she was merely being dramatic. She checked out the next day. Even assistants, she said, knew what was happening. They scheduled the women and cleaned up afterward. One even walked in on them. Didn't flinch, she said, just said, sorry, boss. Then came the physical abuse. Yes, Cassie said. He hit her many times.
Singer Don Richard testifies that Sean Diddy Combs hit Cassie Ventura with a skillet full of eggs.
Photos were shown to the court, revealing a gash above her eyebrow and bruises on her back. He once kicked her after reading a text from Kid Cudi. Another time, he threw her off a boat in the Caribbean, called me deadweight. She swam to shore and still went back. This was the night that broke her. The night before her movie premiere, she wanted to celebrate. Diddy had other plans, one more freak off. She initially declined. But he persisted, saying it was tradition. She gave in. Others were already in the room. She took the pill. Then a masked dancer appeared. Diddy was filming. She found herself slurring. Then Nothing. She woke up in a sweat, alone. He'd texted, "You were amazing." She smiled on the red carpet hours later. No one saw the bruises under her dress. Afterward, she began therapy. Memories resurfaced, faces, rooms. She filed a lawsuit. It settled quickly, but it wasn't about money. "It was about the record," she said. "Proof I wasn't crazy." Then the FBI conducted raids. What they found remained sealed. However, rumors, recordings, secret rooms, files swirled. Cassie declined interviews. "I don't want to be a symbol. I just want to be free." In court, she stated she testified for accountability. For every girl who disappeared into those tunnels and never got to speak. The jury was dismissed. No cameras allowed. However, the world had already heard enough. The truth was out, and the mask was off.
With the selection of a jury in the Sean Diddy Combs case almost complete, prosecutors are preparing for opening arguments on Monday. But they admit there's a snag. One of their key witnesses against the rapper appears to have gone missing. This comes as we learn that Combs' ex-girlfriend, who was seen on video being assaulted by the rapper, is pregnant.
The name of victim number 3 was going to be revealed when she took the stand, but the woman has apparently gone missing, and prosecutors say they've been unable to reach her.
People just get nervous, and this person could just be nervous and just has had second thoughts.
If the prosecutor can't find this witness, how might it affect the case?
Look, I don't think it's going to have a tremendous effect. The prosecution is going to call a number of alleged victims. So look, this is just one less.
It takes a lot, Sylvia, as you know, because the allegations in this case range from like 2004 to 2024. So this is going to be going on for 20 years, and they're finally getting around to charging him now and trying now. That's because it's so difficult to get people who are not afraid to come forward. This person was powerful. They were rich. They had a lot of influence. They were allegedly violent. So all of those things add up to making it very difficult for investigators to get people to talk to them about these. You add in the fact that many of these things are embarrassing. They're of a sexual nature. They're private. They take place behind closed doors. And that adds to the reticence of witnesses coming forward and talking about these things.
Well, I mean, on the surface, if the prosecutor's claims are true, this seems like pretty much textbook witness tampering, right? I mean, it appears to be an effort to either, in some cases, intimidate witnesses from testifying against him, or there have been other reports of sort of inducing people to make statements in his defense. There was some allegation that in one instance this was a statement that he, in essence, dictated or drafted with a woman who made a statement that was attempting to rebut one of the accusers, I believe, in a civil case against him. I mean, witness tampering is bad. The things that Sean Combs is accused of are terrible. He pleads his innocence. The justice system will presumably...
Cassie didn't just testify. She detonated a bomb. In a packed courtroom, under oath and without hesitation, she exposed what insiders had whispered about for years. A list. Not rumors, not suggestions, a full breakdown of names, dates, locations, and events that the public was never supposed to know. More than 25 celebrities, Grammy winners, A-list rappers, reality stars, and athletes are all connected through private encounters, secret parties, and a system designed to protect Diddy at all costs. This wasn't vague testimony. Cassie provided verified timelines, matching guest lists, and corroborating witness accounts. Her words turned the courtroom silent and left the industry frantic.
Likely that there is some underlying truth to at least some of the allegations. There might be a lot of underlying truth to a lot of the allegations. There's probably some bandwagoning going on. We spoke to an attorney who's for one of the victims of alleged victims of Diddy a few weeks ago. I believe Amber Nomiki and I did, and they said they had calls, they had information, they had people, hundreds of them, come forward. They're not going to represent all of them. They're, which ones have evidence that can be compelling. What are the best cases to bring that? I also saw a story in the New York Post. This is from a week ago, about Diddy stuff that I wanted to read the headline of. Woman claims she saw minors dressed as Harajuku Barbies at Sean Diddy Combs' freak-off parties.
Because once that list entered the federal record, nothing could stop the fallout. What happened next wasn't damage control, it was desperation. Social media wiped, events canceled, lawyers on speed dial, yet the internet only wants one thing: who was on that list and how many careers are about to vanish? It began like any other day in court. Cameras were banned, phones were off, everyone was under strict silence, but then Cassie took the stand. And within minutes, the entire atmosphere shifted. No hesitation, no dodging.
I think you want somebody who wants to serve, someone eager to serve, because that suggests that person might be inclined toward a celebrity like Diddy. I would also, in this case, I would want men, not because men support abuse, but I could see this being very difficult for women jurors. I would want younger jurors as well. I don't know that older jurors would.
When the judge asked her to confirm names, she did so, directly and calmly. She described events in New York penthouses, Miami beach houses, and LA retreats, providing names, dates, and even room numbers. Among the bombshells are French Montana, Usher, Meek Mill, Trey Songz, and Bow Wow. Also mentioned is a Grammy-winning R&B singer from Atlanta and a reality TV mogul currently under federal investigation. Even a retired NFL player with active endorsement deals is included. But what shook the courtroom wasn't just the star power. It was the structure. These weren't one-time encounters.
Do you care if they go on social media?
I wouldn't care so much about social media. Certainly watching you on Law and Crime would be a real problem. But no, I wouldn't care too much. I mean, in fact, if they were reading the celebrity media, TMZ, Rolling Stone, that might be an encouraging thing for Diddy's counsel.
Now, Ben, according to the court today, they expect preemptory challenge.
Cassie described rotations. The same people attending the same private events over and over again across different cities, always in Diddy's orbit. There was a pattern, a system. And she wasn't recounting rumors. She was describing her reality. She wasn't a guest. She was the planner. Cassie's role wasn't passive. She wasn't invited to the parties. She helped run them. According to her sworn statement, she arranged transportation, handled scheduling, and even prepped certain women for their appearances.
I wasn't willing to do what was expected of me. Not talent-wise, but in other areas. It's difficult when you're that young to understand your worth as a woman through the men that I was around, and that was very traumatic. I don't think any of us have healed from that. Diddy would be like, you're not hot anymore, like what happened? You don't have anything, like you don't have any curves. You're looking like you're not looking like, I can't get people to think that you're my good looking person. And there was no Me Too at that time. There was no protecting anyone at that time. You signed a million NDAs and a million contracts that took away all your rights.
Many of these women believed they were auditioning for a music video, a brand deal, or a creative collaboration. However, once inside, things changed. She revealed how Diddy would personally select who stayed, who left, and who never got the option to say no. For the celebrities in the room, this wasn't a matter of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. They were active participants, swapping numbers and returning weekend after weekend, with some even bringing guests. Cassie described how the events followed a strict routine. Flights booked under dummy corporations, hotel floors cleared out, and assistants coordinating outfits. Some girls were told to dress like they were going to a red carpet, while others were told to look undiscovered. All under the illusion of opportunity, yet beneath it all was silence, enforced, controlled, and well paid. Then came the spreadsheet. Cassie's lawyer handed over a printed document that the courtroom now refers to as Diddy's Playlist. It is a 5-year-long tracking sheet sorted by city, date, and guest. Some entries matched tour stops, while others were tagged as off-record.
A lot of these rappers, a lot of these industry people, anybody who does business nowadays with the internet, they have NDAs, non-disclosure. That means that if you work for them, you around them, you can't disclose any of the information about them. It's the same thing that he gave to all his artists when he gave them their publishing back.
The court fell silent. The spreadsheet displayed dozens of sessions, studio time that turned into overnight stays, music video shoots that ended in penthouse suites, and promotional trips that included names who weren't even in the industry. Everything was logged, even initials next to hotel room numbers. These weren't throwaway entries. They lined up with flight logs, security footage, and employee statements. The same stars kept appearing, again and again. But the most disturbing detail, each entry had a handler attached. Someone was responsible for logistics. That's where Cassie's name came up, dozens of times. She wasn't recounting vague memories. She was pointing directly to the paperwork. The moment the testimony leaked, panic spread like wildfire. Celebrities named on the list began erasing their digital footprints. One actor deleted over 3 years of Instagram posts, gone in a night. A chart-topping rapper canceled his podcast appearance without any explanation.
The day will come when we will name names other than Sean Combs, and there's a lot of names. It's a long list already. And of course, I already know who some of these individuals are, but because of the nature of this case, we're going to make damn sure that we're right before we do that. But the names that we're going to name, assuming that our investigators confirm and corroborate what we've been told, are names that will shock you.
His team claimed scheduling conflicts, but insiders say he was advised to avoid any public exposure. Meanwhile, stylists, producers, and even bodyguards began reaching out to federal prosecutors, quietly and voluntarily. Why? Because they were there. They weren't in the background, they were part of the machine. Their names appeared on transportation rosters and their faces showed up on security footage. Now, they were realizing it was all going public. A handler who once coordinated events for Diddy reportedly called her attorney at 3 a.m. Another claimed she was pressured into NDA renewals just weeks before Cassie went public. This wasn't a cleanup. It was survival mode. 3 new women stepped forward within 48 hours of Cassie's testimony. Each told a disturbingly similar story. They were flown in under vague pretexts. A music video casting, an influencer shoot, a potential brand campaign. But once they arrived, they were redirected. No team, no contract, just a party. One described being separated from her friend the moment they landed. Another noted she was asked to sign a standard release form with no explanation. The third claimed her phone was confiscated before she had the chance to ask questions. Each individual submitted affidavits. Chillingly, 6 names from their mentions matched Cassie's original list. They described the same events, the same locations, and even the same handlers. These weren't isolated cases, they were part of something coordinated, something practiced. If their accounts hold up in court, the scope of the case could expand dramatically. While the courtroom shook, the internet lit up, thanks to 50 Cent. Minutes after Cassie's testimony leaked, he posted a carousel on Instagram featuring blurred court documents and redacted names. One line that exploded across the timeline: Diddy smashed everybody. And now everybody's lawyered up. He followed it up with blurry screenshots from past parties, red circles drawn around familiar faces. One was a Grammy-winning R&B singer from Atlanta.
Because if you think he's going to get out of this from the federal government, he out his mind. They in the process of plea bargaining, trying to do a plea bargain session with him, and he not taking it. That's probably why one of the lawyers jumped off the case.
While another was a pop producer who once toured with Bieber. Then came the trailer. 50 dropped a teaser for his Netflix docuseries. The video features a silhouette entering a luxury penthouse, accompanied by a voiceover. They knew what was happening. They just didn't think anyone would talk. It was a warning shot, not just to Diddy, but to everyone named in Cassie's testimony. If 50's past is any indicator, this wasn't for clout. It was a calculated move, confirming what many already feared. The industry knew. And now, the world does too. The industry didn't just flinch, it fractured. A luxury brand that had quietly partnered with one of Diddy's flagship events pulled out overnight. No press release, no damage control. They simply removed him from their media kits and website archives. A major music festival updated its historical branding and removed every mention of Diddy, including footage and photos from the early 2000s. Internal emails from label executives began circulating, warning team members not to comment publicly. At label headquarters, conditions deteriorated. Executives with previous connections to Diddy's production companies were abruptly placed on leave. Calendar invites disappeared, meetings were canceled, projects were put on hold. Not out of guilt, but out of fear. Because now every move and every association could be used as evidence. Cassie didn't just drag names into the light. She forced brands to acknowledge the darkness they funded, protected, and perhaps even helped orchestrate. The charges are shifting. What began as a series of civil lawsuits and criminal allegations has evolved into something far more organized. Prosecutors are now investigating whether the entire operation qualifies as a RICO conspiracy, the same legal tool used to take down mafia bosses and drug cartels. Why? Because this wasn't a one-man operation, it was a network. You had event planners, PR agents, handlers, drivers, and security guards all moving in sync.
There is an explosive new lawsuit that I'm going to break down for you, filed by a man named Joseph Manzaro in Florida. And this is actually in Florida federal court. So he is actually identifying himself in this lawsuit. He's not using a pseudonym. And he claims that he is a survivor of human trafficking and sexual exploitation, and more specifically, as outlined in the complaint, quote, plaintiff was drugged, transported against his will, and sexually maimed as a victim of a coercive and organized criminal enterprise beginning in 2015.
Flights were booked under aliases and schedules were built to avoid overlap. NDA renewals occurred every 6 months. Federal insiders say prosecutors are assembling a map, a chart detailing who knew what, who arranged what, and who benefited. If they can prove this was a pattern, a business built on exploitation, the charges escalate from individual crimes to enterprise corruption. And when that happens, it's not just Diddy facing a sentence, it's everyone who helped make it happen. The most haunting moment of the trial came with a single question. The prosecutor looked Cassie dead in the eye and asked, "Were any of the names involved people the public would be shocked by?" She didn't blink. "Some of them," she said, "are artists people call legends. Some are people I used to look up to." And that was it. She didn't say more. She didn't need to. In that sealed courtroom, her silence spoke volumes. A physical copy of the list was handed to the judge and marked into the record under seal. Phones were banned, no cameras, no transcripts. However, someone inside leaked a photo, a blurry image showing part of the document being carried out. The internet zoomed in. You couldn't see the complete list, but one name was faintly visible, enough to send social media into a frenzy. The guesses haven't stopped since. And the truth? It might be even worse than the rumors. What started as a whisper became a testimony. What was once denied is now documented, signed, sealed, entered into federal record. Cassie didn't just expose one man, she cracked open the foundation of an entire machine, one built on silence, fear, and untouchable power. Artists are hiding, PR teams are deleting, sponsors are fleeing. But it's too late. The damage is done. The dots are connecting. And the real question isn't whether Diddy is guilty. It's how many people helped him stay protected, and how far they'll go to keep their names off the following sealed list. Is this story over? It's not even close. It marks the collapse of an industry.
With big potential. Then Brittany Murphy died young. Well, now a new HBO Max documentary is looking into the star's troubled final years.
She was Hollywood's quirky princess, until a December morning when Brittany Murphy left her hillside mansion on a stretcher, never to return. The coroner said pneumonia, but Brittany had spent weeks whispering about cameras, poison, and being watched. Today, that fear is back in the headlines. Ashton Kutcher is reportedly ready to hand federal investigators proof that his one-time party ally Diddy holds the missing piece. 2 sudden deaths, twin autopsies, and rumors of blackmail-filled freak-off nights collide in a case colder than winter air, and hidden recordings waiting to surface, evidence nobody expected. Brittany Murphy's final morning began with a frantic call from her mother, the kind of shaky-voiced 911 plea that Hollywood gossip sites replayed for weeks. Paramedics found Brittany unconscious on the bathroom floor, rushed her to Cedars-Sinai, and pronounced her gone at just 32. The coroner's press release framed it as a tragic but straightforward loss: severe pneumonia complicated by anemia and multiple drug intoxication.
Brittany, please come back!
Most outlets moved on, but the details never sat right with friends or fans. Why had Brittany's husband, screenwriter Simon Monjack, fought so hard to block an autopsy if all she'd taken were over-the-counter cold medicines? Why did the coroner refuse, for months, to list what substances were actually in her system? Even stranger, Kim Porter, Diddy's ex and mother of 3 of his children, would die 9 years later from the exact same form of pneumonia after privately confessing fear for her life. 2 vibrant women, both whispering about threats, both felled by an illness almost unheard of in the healthy. Cut to 2025. Federal investigators reopen Britney's file while Diddy faces trafficking and racketeering charges, and suddenly that old official story feels more fragile than ever. Autopsy summaries are reread, toxicology omissions re-examined, and armchair detectives notice how many people close to Britney had stakes in keeping deeper questions buried. If the first report was true, why does every new revelation make it sound less like a medical tragedy and more like the prologue to something much darker?
She's a Scorpio. What else do you need to know?
I'm a double Scorpio.
Double Scorpio.
She evidently collapsed in the bathroom.
Long before she collapsed, Britney had been telling anyone who would listen that someone wanted her gone. She ordered fingerprint locks on bedroom doors, installed cameras throughout the Hollywood Hills house, and stopped eating food she hadn't prepared herself. Friends say she would sit at dinner, eyes flicking to windows as if expecting a lens to slide into view. Even bottled water felt suspect. "They're watching," she whispered, though she never spelled out who they were. When coughs set in during early December, Britney refused hospital care, convinced a clinic visit would make her an easier target. Monjic and Britney's mother, Sharon, told reporters she was simply anxious and exhausted. Yet the moment Britney died, both adults floated a new explanation: a mysterious toxic mold infestation, then blocked city inspectors from testing the house. Within weeks, they abandoned the mold story entirely, leaving neighbors bewildered. The contradiction was glaring. If mold killed Britney, wouldn't you want proof to protect yourself? Pathologist Dr. Richard Shepard later dismissed the idea outright. No fungal spores in Britney's lungs, no signs in her bloodstream. All that remained was her persistent dread of poisoning. Whether paranoia or prescience, that fear kept her in self-imposed isolation that winter. It also left a paper trail of frantic texts and voicemails begging friends to believe her. Those messages, now resurfacing in federal hands, raise an unsettling possibility. Britney wasn't spiraling. She was signaling, and the people closest to her treated the warning like background noise until it was too late.
During a little dip she was having, he came along. And I think that's where her judgment was muddled, and she became prey.
Simon said that he was the largest collector of Vermeer, dated Elle Macpherson and Madonna. He said that he had been dying from terminal brain cancer.
Grief never sat quietly with Angelo Bertolotti, Britney's estranged father. In 2013, he sent strands of her hair to an independent lab, unwilling to accept pneumonia as the final word. The results jolted everyone. Alarmingly high levels of antimony and barium, metals often found in rat poison and certain insecticides. Toxicologists said the amount suggested long-term exposure, not a single accident. Angelo went public, declaring his daughter was murdered, and demanded Los Angeles reopen the case. Officials shrugged. They hadn't tested for heavy metals because no one had requested it during the original autopsy. Critics pointed out that someone had. Britney herself, when she told friends she feared poisoning, but her words were dismissed as stress. Angelo's findings didn't convince every expert, yet they cracked the door for re-examination. Why did county examiners omit heavy metal screening, a routine step in unexplained deaths? Why did they downplay Britney's anemia, a classic symptom of chronic toxin exposure? And why, as FBI interest in Diddy's alleged blackmail parties grows, are agents now revisiting that third-party hair test with fresh eyes? Prosecutors rarely hinge a case on 10-year-old samples, but the metal story reshapes Britney's timeline. Symptoms of weakness, shortness of breath, and cognitive fog match antimony poisoning almost verbatim. If someone administered low doses over weeks, pneumonia could mask the true cause. Angelo believed his daughter's biggest misstep was trusting the wrong circle. A decade later, investigators are treating his conspiracy as a potential breadcrumb instead of a grieving father's fantasy.
And that he had bought an experimental treatment derived from the fins of sharks. Every single word out of his mouth was a lie.
We all were scared and freaked out. Like, who was this guy?
Once they got married, they were holed up in that house 24/7.
Nobody got close to her.
Last one, guys.
When Britney met Ashton Kutcher on the set of Just Married, tabloids framed their 5-month romance as Hollywood fluff. Yet insiders claim the chemistry was real, matching rings, whispered engagement chatter, evenings at Diddy's famed white parties. The breakup came fast and messy. Ashton pivoted to Demi Moore, a guest list regular at those same after-hours gatherings where secrecy trumped smartphones. Publicly, Ashton brushed off Britney as a great friend, but privately, mutual pals say guilt gnawed at him. Years later on Hot Ones, he called Diddy impossible to prank, a quirky anecdote that hinted at deeper respect, maybe fear. Fast forward to Diddy's March 2025 arrest on human trafficking charges, and rumor mills boom, Ashton is cooperating, allegedly offering texts, photos, and flight logs that place him and Diddy at private estates where privacy meant leverage. Sources insist Kutcher's tech investments gave him a habit of archiving data that could corroborate claims Britney made before her death. If true, Ashton isn't just a witness, he's a thread connecting Britney's paranoia to Diddy's legal maze. Critics argue Ashton's leak is image control, to distance himself before prosecutors widen the net. Supporters say he's finally righting an old wrong. Either way, one question stalks every headline. Did Britney confide in Ashton about what she saw? And is that the evidence he's now ready to unload? The timing suggests more than coincidence. It feels like a reckoning years in the making.
Fire Department 97, what's the address of the emergency?
1895 Rising Glen Road.
What's the phone number you're calling from? Tell me exactly what happened.
Oh, somebody's passed out.
Whispers of Diddy's invitation-only freak-offs have circulated for decades. Sprawling mansions stripped of phones, staffed with off-duty security, overflowing with cash and anything else guests desired. Former attendees describe bowls of electronics locked away at the door, cameras hidden in vents, and non-disclosure agreements thicker than a screenplay. Prosecutors allege the parties doubled as compromat factories, record a superstar in a compromising scene, store the footage, wield influence later. Kim Porter reportedly kept notebooks on the operation. Her planned memoir vanished after her pneumonia death. Now, Brittany Murphy's name slides onto the same timeline. Anonymous sources claim Britney stumbled onto a USB drive containing short, time-stamped clips from one of these nights, faces blurred but voices identifiable. She supposedly told friends, "If this leaks, careers end." Weeks later, she was gone. The heavy metal toxicology, Ashton's newfound conscience, and Kim's eerily similar demise stitched together a theory. Women who learn too much become liabilities. Prosecutors haven't confirmed the drive exists, yet agents raided Diddy's Miami mansion searching for encrypted storage devices linked to blackmail. If Britney's discovery tied Ashton, Diddy, and powerful studio moguls together, motive shifts from rumor to risk management. Skeptics ask why evidence hasn't surfaced. Supporters argue it's in a sealed federal vault. Either possibility slams home the same point: Britney's death may rest at the intersection of celebrity excess and weaponized secrecy. The freak-offs weren't just parties. They might have been pressure points, and Britney may have held one in her hand. Simon Monjack entered Britney's life like a rom-com plot twist. Older, well-spoken, claiming connections to Vermeer paintings and billionaire investors. Friends saw red flags instantly. Lawsuits trailed him across continents, unpaid debts, forged checks, tales of terminal brain cancer cured by shark fin therapy.
Somebody what?
My daughter's passed out. We're doing mouth to mouth. Please get here quick, please.
Okay. All right, we're going to. How old is your daughter?
She's 30. Please hurry.
She's 30?
Yet Britney, battling career setbacks and studio gossip, clung to his promises of unconditional love. Within months, Simon isolated her from agents, stylists, even lifelong pals. When she fired her staff, Simon became manager, chef, bodyguard, and gatekeeper. After Britney died, Simon staged tear-filled TV interviews, insisting she was a teetotaler felled by cough syrup. He blamed paparazzi stress, then mold spores, anything except foul play. His biggest tell: he blocked LAPD from retrieving Britney's medical files, citing privacy. 5 months later, he collapsed in the same house from the same bizarre pneumonia-anemia combo. The coincidence screamed scripted, yet investigators found no bruises, no external toxins, just prescription bottles littering nightstands. Critics believe Simon orchestrated the perfect misdirection, keep Britney medicated, control the narrative, delay any real forensic deep dive. The HBO doc What Happened, Britney Murphy, paints him as both puppet master and possible victim. Maybe he knew too much. Maybe he signed the same silence contract. Either way, his presence turned Brittany's home into a sealed bunker where truth suffocated long before she did. And his death erased the easiest path to answers, forcing detectives to chase ghosts instead of confessions.
Now the HBO documentary, What Happened, Brittany Murphy, alleges Monjack was a con artist and contributed to her death. Brittany's friend, actress Kathy Najimy, appears in the documentary.
During a little dip she was having, he came along. And I think that's where her judgment was muddled.
In every interview, Sharon Murphy called Brittany her best friend, yet her actions have puzzled observers for 15 years. She discovered Brittany collapsed, phoned 911, and publicly echoed Simon's shifting explanations. First prescription mishap, then toxic mold. When toxicologists debunked mold, she offered no alternative theory, simply urged fans to remember Brittany's smile. Whispers grew louder after TMZ published photos of Sharon and Simon shopping for jewelry just weeks after the funeral, leaning on each other like a couple in the morning, or something else. Rumors of their unusual closeness went nuclear when a leaked will allegedly left Brittany's entire estate to Sharon, with Simon as trustee. Once Simon died, Sharon sold the Rising Glen Roadhouse within days, refusing mold inspectors and deep clean crews alike. She pocketed the proceeds, moved out of state, and faded from public view, granting only a single statement. Britt was sensitive, the world wasn't. Critics call it damage control. Supporters cite trauma. Yet her silence has consequences. By avoiding depositions, Sharon left gaps in the timeline only she can fill. Why refuse metal testing? Why accept pneumonia when Brittany said poison? And why not demand a federal review when new evidence surfaced?
And she became prey. We all were scared and freaked out. Like, who was this guy?
And there's this shocking claim.
Simon said that he dated Elle Macpherson and Madonna. He said that he had been dying from terminal brain cancer and that he had bought an experimental treatment derived from the fins of sharks. Every single word out of his...
Some investigators quietly suspect Sharon knew Brittany's fears were real, but chose safety over truth. Whether protector, enabler, or both, her decisions form the last opaque layer around the mystery. Until she speaks under oath, Brittany's story remains an unfinished puzzle, one only a mother can complete. Brittany Murphy once lit up every screen she touched. Today, her story flickers between tragedy and chilling intrigue. Two identical pneumonias, a husband wrapped in lies, a mother veiled in silence, and a music mogul now fighting for his own freedom. Each thread pulls tighter around a question no coroner could answer. Was Brittany simply unlucky, or was she systematically erased? As Ashton Kutcher's rumored evidence inches toward the courtroom and federal agents re-examine forgotten files, the mystery feels closer than ever to rupturing. Will Brittany finally get justice, or will Hollywood bury another secret?